All right, here we go. Annie and Elsten on a Friday with Sam Levitt and Frank Marchese. Craig Elsten here. We've got both Annie and Braden out today. Braden will be back come Monday. Annie will be back soon. Just not even sure. She's like, I'm working to try and get some days to next week. I'm like, how many meetings? You know how many meetings they can have for a giant corporate event. They can have plenty of meetings. We are up on YouTube now, so welcome to everybody who is checking out the feed on the 97.3 The Fan show page. We appreciate you. Make sure you click like on today's video. Your comments help add to the algorithm to get more people to check out the live show while it's on and the video once it's set up for replay. Shout out to my son, James. He's watching at home, has a bit of a cough. They had today off anyway, though, so he was going to be lounging on his iPad playing video games
today. Off from school?
At Catholic school. I don't know.
Okay.
There was something. I don't know what it was. Staff planning. You know, they got those random days.
I do remember those teacher planning days.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's nice to be, I always liked it.
Teachers are hard job.
School.
Teachers are a hard job. For the kids, though, teacher planning day is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So first segment, we kind of settled in. Let me set up the show for you here between now and 2:00. We're going to spend a good part of the first 2 hours with Sammy talking through the Padres position players, position by position, going around the diamond and trying to get, just our thumb on where we are, maybe offer a little more optimism than you're inclined to believe right now. Because when you look at it, you remember there are some really good players in the San Diego Padres starting lineup, even today. Also, there's 2 possible outfielders right now, and I think we need 3 more. So, we're a little short in a couple of positions. We're going to go through all of that. Coming up toward the end of our second hour, we're going to have another weekly segment. It's Braden's football segment. We don't have Braden today, so it's Frank's football segment.
All right.
Where Frank Marchese will take us through the championship games, give us the bold predictions. We'll buy or sell on that.
Frank's football segment, I must say, and hopefully I'm not kind of blowing Frank's cover here, I don't think Frank is a huge NFL guy to begin with.
I despise the NFL, but I will.
I knew it.
Frank, I will do what I need to do.
I like this better
for content.
Yeah.
Please. I like this better now.
Here's what you may not realize, Craig. Frank and I, we've spent many days over the last 2 years in this studio together for extended stretches of time. We're talking 7, 8, 9 hours during Padres games. So I don't know everything about Frank, but I know a lot. And I know he doesn't like the NFL that much, but he does like car racing, big car racing guy.
Okay.
Big hockey guy, big Islanders fan.
Big hockey guy. I'll give you the NHL part of the 12:00 Sports Fix today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Big news in there. About one team, Oilers, right? Big news. You know that, right, Frank? You're big into the hockey.
I believe so. Yes, I do.
Oilers have won 15 in a row.
Really? I'm not big into the hockey, but I root for the Islanders too. Why not? I was at an Islanders game this year. You remember that?
Yes, you were. I was very jealous.
That's right.
Well, I'm glad to join this voyage of discovery to find out more things, like I've given Frank's football segment, and it might just be Frank saying, hand egg is a silly game. Let's now talk about football, and he'll get into European soccer or something. I mean, frankly, it's Frank's segment.
Yes.
So
go whatever way he wants.
I'm just going to be here to react to it when it comes. But now I'm way more intrigued than I was before.
I think Chelsea and Arsenal play in the FA Cup in about an hour.
So if that's Frank's football segment, look, that's Frank's football segment. If it is, what am I to say? In fact, I think it would be hilarious that Braden would have to come back to that. I think that would be especially delightful. We could play it for him and tell, look what happened to your football segment, Braden. You leave for a day. Look what happens to your football segment. The NFL Films music was replaced by Ryan O'Neal singing. Everything changed. Everything changed quickly. I look forward to this now. Coming up at 12:00, the 12:00 Sports Fix. The best 10 minutes in radio, somebody said in the chat the other day, and I just had to laugh. But it is our chance to hit reset for everybody who's moving around all day long. Even when you're not moving around all day long, it's pretty hard to get caught up on what's going on today in the world of sports, including all of our local information. You can probably find out the latest on the NFL just by scanning around anywhere. But to actually find out everything that's happening with all of our local teams, all of our local college basketball teams, our arena teams, everything else, we give it to you every day in one spot at 12 o'clock. You can count on it. It's clockwork. Always takes less than 10 minutes to get you completely caught up, and more so than you would even if you literally picked up the newspaper.
Yeah, I really like it. And, look, I think, when it's baseball off season, there's no Padres games to go to. If the Aztecs aren't in town, it might be easy to say, well, I guess there's no sports going on, but it's not true. There's Division I basketball, UC San Diego, USD. Even as we get into college baseball season, February and March, you've got some great programs around here. And you've got the San Diego Mojo. They play home games, home matches, I should say, starting in late February, which I think is going to be awesome. In fact, I saw some of the highlights from, I don't think the Mojo have played yet,
right?
But I saw some highlights, I think from yesterday and the day before, the first matches in the Pro Volleyball Federation history. The highlights of what I saw in Omaha, and I think it was Grand Rapids, it looked awesome. And if you're not a volleyball fan, I've done a lot of college volleyball.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's great. I love calling volleyball. I love watching volleyball. It's exciting, super athletic. I really, really hope people go to those Mojo games and matches, I should say again, those Mojo matches and really give it a shot, because I think it's going to be super entertaining. And the players that the Mojo have, that other teams in that federation have, I mean, these are big time former college volleyball players, right? Elite of the elite. I think it's going to be really cool. And I'm encouraged by what I saw around the country so far.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it as well. I'm excited to go to it. I know Annie's promoting Mojo on the air right now, and I think that's tremendous.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what the product looks like and also how it evolves, because I know very well whenever you're in a first-time team, a first-time league, a lot of people, hey, first-time show. A lot of people like to tune in and within 2 minutes say, well, it always was this and it always will be that.
Right.
And it's not the case for the Mojo. It's not the case when the Gulls got started or the Seals got started or the Sockers got started, or any team that you think about, the Loyal, et cetera. That first game, first match, it's the beginning.
Yeah.
It's pushing out from the shore.
Yeah. No, I think the segment's important. Like, I went to my first Wave match this past fall. I went to the playoff match. I think it was against the Reign of Ontario.
I'm sorry.
Wasn't good. It wasn't a good result. But with that said, it was tremendous. The atmosphere, the crowd, all of it. I was so impressed. So there's a lot of good stuff going on in this city right now. And hey, beautiful weather for the most part. And good times.
Let's all just pretend
always.
Monday didn't happen. I wish we could. Unfortunately, a lot of people still digging out from it. Just wrapping up later at 12:45. AJ hasn't made a trade yet. So AJ has 2 hours and about 15 minutes to cancel today's Let's Make a Trade. If he does not, we will attempt to make another trade. It's our daily attempt to be the writer's room for the Padres front office, punching up ideas, offering gentle encouragement, saying yes and doing all the things you do in a writer's room in order to try and get to something. Just give us something.
So we're going to do Twins again. Is that
Twins part
accurate?
2. That is Twins part 2.
So yesterday's trade was what that you came up with?
Yesterday was actually the puncturing of a trade. It was saying Randy Arozarena was not a good fit. We explored and dismissed Randy Arozarena.
Okay. So it wasn't the Twins yesterday.
No, the day before we tried to trade for Max Kepler.
Got it. Okay.
And then my buddy John Percoda from Positive Replacement said, you should trade for this guy. And I said, okay, well, let's do that Friday.
Now, here's my question on the Annie and Elsten trade machine, if you will.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be something we think is like really realistic, or something that is kind of out of left field, like dream scenario?
I try. I'm telling you the honest truth, Sammy. Each day I try and think of a trade that would at least make sense.
Okay.
Baseball sense. Like, why would this happen? A couple of times I'm like, for example, Arozarena. Why would the Rays trade Randy Arozarena? I just don't think they would.
Right.
So when people go, oh, we'll trade him because it's the Rays, like, no, he's still like $4 million this year.
Right.
It's next year they'll need to trade him, or the year after that. The Rays like good players at affordable contracts.
Right.
And they want to win, not to just give us their players.
Yeah. Like when I read Twins, like one of my first thoughts, well, in an ideal world, I'd love to have Pablo Lopez, but the Twins just signed him to an extension. It's pretty affordable. I don't think they're trading Pablo Lopez.
Of course not.
Okay.
No.
When we think about, I'm going to try to think about it in like a
I'm looking for an
realistic
outfielder.
sense. Okay.
I'm just looking for an outfielder.
Well,
we don't have any.
Yeah.
We've got one plus a platoon guy.
Look, I feel like, and Padres fans, I love you, but I feel like the discourse I see on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever, social media, pick of your choice, it's kind of interesting when some of these guys get signed, even like the Joey Gallos of the world. And it's like, well, you don't really want him anyway. And in my head, I'm like, well, there are other options. But right now, you've got blank spaces next to left field and center field. And I don't know, somebody's got to play him, hypothetically, unless it's going to be Jose Azocar and it's going to be, I don't know, putting Jackson Merrill in left field on opening day. Yeah. To me, like
that's our opening day outfield today.
You're getting to a point where I understand that not a lot of these names are not like if you were picking at the start of November, ideal. You probably would have said we can do a little bit better than that, but with the dwindling names and it being January 26th, some professional baseball players in here wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, no matter who they are.
Please. I don't want to make up trades every day. People who have listened to Padres Hot Tub for years know that every time we talk about speculative trades, I would say, whether it's to John Gennaro or to Chris Reed and Rafi Cantor, tell me when the trade happens.
Right.
Tell me what we got and tell me what we gave up. And then I'll tell you if it's a good trade.
Right.
Because whenever you say, should we trade for this guy? It's like, sure, what's the cost? If it's for nothing we're going to count for, then make the trade. If it's going to be for a great player, let's not do that.
Right.
So, it's fun. More than anything, it's a gentle prod. It's a daily reminder, a dripping reminder every day on the head of we got to make some moves. Like we can't just walk into February with this.
Yeah. Well, look, right now it's fascinating because I leave for spring training in 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Wild.
There's a lot to be done. It feels like, not just it feels like, there's a lot to be done between now and potentially 2 weeks from now. But look, here's the reality. With the way this market is moving, who knows? I mean, we could see, aside from the 1 year where Harper and Manny didn't sign, until into spring training, those big position player contracts. Look, we could see something similar with these starting pitchers, whether it be Snell or Montgomery or Cody Bellinger in that category as well, where you might be sitting there in late February or mid-February, whatever. Those guys aren't with the team yet. It's setting up to be a weird offseason as a whole and a really interesting finish here towards the end. It's fascinating right now.
Well, maybe the Dodgers will just sign them all. And we'll just sign everybody. And we'll be like, okay.
Hey, even James Paxton got $12 million.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, my goodness.
Dave Robertson got $12 million, and he was an okay second-tier reliever last year in the National League. The price is ridiculous. It's why the Soto trade winds up looking better and better and better every single day. All right, let's take a quick timeout because we're talking through this, but we are actually going to dive into it. We'll start behind the plate when we come back. Padres position player roster review, preseason roster review. Craig and Sammy here on Annie and Elsten. We are with you till 2 o'clock at San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. All of them. That's what they say, and I believe it. It's Annie and Elsten here with you on a Friday, rolling into the weekend, 10:42 the time. Thanks for being with us. Craig Elsten, Sam Levitt, Frank Marchese here today. Braden Soprenet will be back on Monday, and potentially Annie as well. Annie really tied up pretty much through February 5th with the Salute to Champions, and she's checking in when she can. And absolutely wants to be here. Just like she's bummed every day. Like, I wish I could be there. I wish I could be part of the show that literally has my name on the front of it. And she'll be back very, very soon. And February 6th at the latest.
And if there was a time to miss with very little Padres
You're
activity,
not kidding. That's what my conspiracy theory hat. Yeah. I keep putting on my tinfoil and going, how many meetings do you really have? Are you just waiting for a Padres signing?
Pre-spring training, and then once you get to spring training, April, you got plenty to talk about.
Well, here's what we're going to talk about for a good portion of the time between here and 12 o'clock. Let's go around the horn. Let's go around the diamond, Sam, and just kind of look at where do we stand right now and see if in some spaces maybe we are better off than we think. I'm definitely starting on a spot that I think is a high note right now for the Padres by great comparison to last year, and that's catcher.
Agreed.
You've got Luis Campusano now coming in for the first time in his career as the expected number one catcher for the San Diego Padres. I've been waiting for this for a couple of years. He's been slowed by injuries. He's been slowed by selection with Austin Nola being in front of him in 2022. And then really a lot of things have gone sideways the last couple of years for Luis Campusano. But finally, after another injury, he got things rolling, and in the second half of the season last year, showed what a plus-hitting offensive catcher could do compared to the worst-hitting offensive catcher.
Right. You look at his numbers after he came back from the thumb injury in 42 games. This was from July 19th until late September. 331 batting average, 875 OPS, 6 home runs, 28 RBIs. The thing that offensively really impressed me last season, it wasn't just the power. Everybody knew he had power, right? This was a guy who was a California League MVP who always hit for power in the minor leagues. And look, as he came up, was a big-time prospect in this organization. But even beyond that, Craig, I loved the approach at the plate. I mean, you can go back and look at some of his at-bats with runners in scoring position, in key spots, opportunities to drive in runs. And I just thought he showed a really mature approach. Like, there were moments, there were at-bats where he was not swinging for the fences. He was just trying to, serve something into the outfield and drive in runs. And I came away really impressed by him. I think the knowledge that he will enter the year, like you said, undoubtedly this team's number one catcher, playing every day. I think it's a really good thing for Luis Campusano. There isn't that. Even last year during spring training, he was, playing in spring training very early on. And Austin Nola was there. And it was kind of assumed that Nola, after what he did in the postseason and, based on who he was going to be the guy. And then Luis would have an opportunity to back him up, but really get opportunity to play. This year, it's a lot different. He is your bona fide number one catcher. And look, I think it's a great opportunity for Luis. I would not be shocked if by year's end, we're talking about him as like, wow, this guy has really panned out as a really, really good offensive everyday catcher. And, and is known around baseball. I really think that's a possibility in 2024.
I think he's the single most underrated facet of the 2024 Padres.
Sure.
People are not talking about what Luis Campusano has been and can be. Now, he didn't play enough to qualify officially for his Baseball Savant rankings, but you go and look at his sliders, and if he had played enough, he would have ranked at the very top of the league for a number of things, 98th, 99th percentile for batting average, expected on-base percentage, expected weighted on-base percentage, sweet spot. And here's the thing about Luis Campusano. He only struck out 21 times in 174 plate appearances.
Great point.
Now, you say only, but that strikeout percentage for Campusano, 12%. It's one of the lowest
right
in the league. Again, not a gigantic sample size last year, but this is what he was as a hitter in the minor leagues coming up. Barrel, sweet spot,
Right.
high average, sprays it to all fields. The level he played for 174 plate appearances, he generated over 1 WAR in that little
Right.
time. This could be an all-star level player for San Diego if he just hits the way he hit last year.
And at a position where offense can be really hard to find. I mean, there is tremendous value in him. And look, I'm glad you brought up the sliders and the lack of strikeouts, because it speaks to what I was just saying about the approach. Like, again, that it wasn't a surprise that he hit for power. Okay, he's always done that. But to be that early into your major league career with relatively few at-bats over the course of a few years and dealing with the injuries, I just thought for him to come back over the summer and show the approach, show the maturity at the plate, I thought it was an awfully good sign. I'm with you. I think it's something that's not being focused on a ton, and it's something that really may end up being such a positive that it is, it's something this team hasn't had in a little while, which is like a premium offensive catcher. And then look, the defensive side, it's been a work in progress. We know that. The receiving side, it's been a work in progress. The Padres have talked about that for some time. But I thought, for the most part last year, he did a pretty good job. Hopefully he continues to get better, gets more comfortable with the staff. And quite frankly, if you're getting the kind of offense that he showed, you're going to take kind of whatever the defense is at that point, I think.
And of course, I think the other reason, kind of like the last thought on Campusano before we switch quickly to Kyle Higashioka, there's an easy ability to dismiss him because Ethan Salas is coming and go, well, yeah, we've got Campusano, but Salas. But hang on. If you've got an all-star level hitting catcher,
Sure.
If you've got someone who puts that kind of premium hitting at catcher, it gives the Padres the opportunity to actually let Ethan Salas develop, to
Absolutely.
not fly him up the ladder and rush him to the big leagues. And once he gets here, if the bat for Campy is playing the way it is, then you've got an opportunity. You've got an opportunity to keep both players fresh, have Campusano play first base or DH on a day that he doesn't catch, right, and vice versa for Salas. And I think it's a great situation right now for the Padres to have Campusano here, Salas on the come, and a pretty capable 1-year backstop in Kyle Higashioka,
Sure,
over from the Yankees in the trade for Soto. Now, is he an offensive wonderkind? No, he's going to probably OPS somewhere in the 650s. 670 is about what, last year, 687. He was a negative WAR player last year, but what are you looking for from Higashioka? Somebody that if you need him to step in for a couple, 3 days, right? Or if Campy goes down, that you have somebody who's capable, veteran, understands what he's doing, and at least is going to give you, potentially 10 home runs.
Right. No, absolutely. And somebody that can work with Luis, right? Be a good influence on Luis Campusano as a veteran, as somebody who's been there, done that, and been on winning teams in New York and played in a big market, all of it that comes along with Kyle Higashioka. So I'm with you, Craig. I view the catcher position, assuming that you can get, we saw a glimpse of it last year from Luis offensively. If you get that guy again offensively, I think it can become a major strength. And to your point on Ethan Salas, look, I understand all the buzz, all the hype. It is exciting. Okay. From everything you hear, you read, every evaluator, okay, he is a tremendous prospect. He also will be 18 at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So look, I've always been somebody, and I without, us talking about it ever, I think you'd agree based on what you said, especially if you have Luis Campusano producing and being really good behind the plate and offensively, what he could give you. To me, it's a positive in the sense, like you said, that you can be more patient with him. I'm not the biggest fan of this idea that somehow, some way, Ethan Salas is going to be in the major leagues before the end of 2024. He is 17 years old. He's played 1 season where he bounced around to all different levels, had some great moments, had some periods where he struggled. which, by the way, is not a bad thing at all. Okay, he's 17 and he was playing real full season minor league baseball. The fact that he did as well as he did, I think is remarkable and says a lot about him. But I'm in the camp of be as patient as you can sort of possibly be with Ethan Salas. And my goodness, if you are faced in a year or two with a scenario where you have a premium catcher in Luis Campusano and you've got this unbelievable prospect and Ethan Salas right behind him and you've got to figure it out, what a great problem to have. And I'll worry about that in 2025 at some point. But look, Luis Campusano continuing the progress he showed last year, I think is outstanding. Like that would be an outstanding part of this roster that I'm with you. I don't think enough people have focused on how much that would actually mean.
Brett Sullivan will be the third catcher. He'll be El Paso's starting catcher. He'll come up when situation warrants and injury necessitates for the Padres. And, he's an organization player. He's a gamer. He is a left-handed bat. But to tie up this segment on catcher, I just want to note that you always have to look at a position when you're evaluating it in terms of not only what do you have, but what did you have, right? And what are you replacing it with?
Right.
And the San Diego Padres were the worst at catcher last year. Austin Nola delivered an OPS plus of 30. He was 70% worse than an average player. And Brett Sullivan came up and felt like a breath of fresh air with an OPS plus of 48.
Right.
So you're going from 30 and 48 in the case of Sullivan and Nola to Campusano was 134 last year in short time played. And even Higashioka at 85 would be almost twice as good as what Brett Sullivan was for the team last year. That's only if they just did what they did last year. Campusano with full playing time, something he has not had since he was a kid tearing through high A and double A.
Right.
You don't even know what he could hit 325.
Right.
You could have a Mike Piazza type year with less power, and if you have something like that, whoa, what happens to our lineup all of a sudden? We've got somebody down in the 6-hole or 5-hole maybe that's killing it, and he's behind the plate. What a luxury. Yeah. What a positive for the San Diego Padres in 2024.
And having catchers that make that kind of impact, if you look around Major League Baseball, young catchers that have that kind of impact, it usually means a good thing for your team as a whole, whether it's an Adley Rutschman, whether it's a Cal Raleigh up in Seattle. There are a couple of other examples too, like having a young catcher who does really, really, really good things offensively. Like you said, it's a premium because it's, as we learned, with Austin Nola here, it's a position where it can be very, very hard to find offenses in. It just is the way it is right now in 2024 in Major League Baseball. So I'm with you, Craig. I think it's a terrific opportunity for Campusano, and we don't even really know what the ceiling is because unfortunately he wasn't healthy enough last year and didn't get enough playing time to show it. So very, very interesting. I agree.
Yeah, if it's Kim, Tatis, Manny, Xander, Campy, it's all righties, but it's all good hitters in the top 5 lineup spots for the Padres. That's hour number 1. Annie and Elsten on a Friday. Craig and Sammy hanging out with you with Frank Marchese. We're back with more. We're going to wrap through the rest of the position players on the Fan. 11 o'clock in America's finest city. Welcome back. It's your new midday hang. Annie and Elsten here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan, alongside Sam Levitt. Craig Elsten here with you this morning. Frank Marchese in for Braden Soprenet. Sammy is in for Annie today, and I'm just psyched. It's great to have a guy who's here for every day of Padres talk throughout the season. You've heard his voice for the last couple of years. He is TikTok's emergent star as well. I mean, how did you feel when you did something and then it did the thing on TikTok?
Weird. I don't know. I think it's important to note that I've been TikToking for quite some time, going back to when I was in Amarillo in the minor leagues. That's how the TikTok journey started, because I would make videos about minor league baseball and my job and whatnot, right? And I gained like a few 100,000 followers that way. But then there was this whole weird sound thing, which I have totally milked. Which I admit, but look at the views, and then you'll understand why I keep doing it. Weird. It's cool and weird. You also get like nice comments and a lot of mean comments. A lot of my mean comments come on Instagram. TikTok's for the most part nice, at least to me. So weird, but cool, but interesting, but overall good.
Well, see, it's
a mix of emotions.
You literally led into my follow-up, because I have never personally achieved the level of virality that you have, but whenever, and look, what has become of Twitter, it's the worst version of itself right now. But I still have always found when something breaks a threshold, and then the algorithm starts sending it way outside people who actually follow you, or even, for example, follow Padres, but they've followed something Padres adjacent, and then something big is popping, and the algorithm starts flopping it out to a wider and wider audience, that you just inevitably invite some awful, horrible commentary, crude and pointless usually. And that's just kind of like part and parcel with, if you get big in this range, just understand it comes with something else.
For sure. I think, you have to accept it. And what I do, I normally don't respond, but if I do, I typically only do one thing, and that's just put laughing emojis. It helps me laugh it off. I'll just 3 laughing emojis. It's fine. So it comes with the territory. You just gotta remember it's the internet and it's TikTok, and who cares?
That's the great attitude to have, man. I mean, we're all put in a position being in this area. We're content creators, and now doing it on the old media side, right? Creating radio, but also creating video content.
Sure.
You're always putting yourself out there. I mean, we've got, 4 or 5 people who love to make a point every week to say, hey, you're terrible. You should go away, and it's like, okay, cool. So my thing has been to just reply to them very politely, like, hey, thank you for being here. And, hope you stick around, but otherwise hope you have a good day. Like, see you later. I am here. You think you're yelling into a void to be mean for fun. Like, no, I see you.
Sure.
And I just want to let you know that you're seen, and you can go now.
Well, that's a good point, because I do think when people comment stuff, I do think they think that they're saying it into a void, and that somehow the people don't see it. I'm here to tell you, and this is not just me saying it. I bet for even the biggest of celebrities, here's the thing, they're just people. I'm sure even the biggest of big celebrities go on Instagram and scroll, or click the little comment tab and see what people occasionally are saying. Maybe they don't, because maybe you get to a level where it's just silliness.
No mentions, right?
But I think it gets seen a lot more than people think it gets seen. So hey, it's all part of it. So is what it is.
It is what it is. So what Sammy and I started doing last hour is a position player breakdown and preview for the Padres going towards spring training, because Sammy is mentally right now going towards spring training.
Yes.
It's just a couple weeks away. I'm sure your mind is already drifting to the Airbnb.
Oh, I'm excited. Airbnb. I'm out of the hotel from last year, which is good.
Yeah.
Yes. Airbnb should be good. Fingers crossed.
figuring out your favorite spots on Bell Road.
Yes, Bell Road. Well, there's a lot to choose from. There really is a lot to choose from.
There really is.
You know, you've got your Texas Roadhouse. You've got, is there an Applebee's there? I don't know.
I guarantee you there's an Applebee's there.
Well,
within a square mile, everything you've ever heard of is there.
Yes, everything. Where I'm staying, though, this year is a little bit farther away. So I've got like a 15-20 minute drive. So I don't know. I may branch out a little bit more than I did last year. But yes, and look, there are plenty of options in Peoria to eat. So, hey, on a serious note about spring training, though, I do, and I've had a lot of people this offseason, as I've just seen people, talk about spring training. If you've never been, it really is worth going. Like, I had never been out beyond a few days to a spring training. It is so relaxed and cool, and you get a level of access that you just don't typically get to the players and get to see them do things that you don't typically see them do. I mean, on the baseball field, just by drills and all these different things. Like, if you're on the fence sitting there here in late January about going out, making a trip, I really do recommend it. It's a really, really good time of year, and I think a unique experience that every baseball fan should have at some point.
We're trying to figure out a Padres hot tub trip out there, and I thought maybe we'd have an Annie and Elsten trip out there. I guess we're not going to have an Annie and Elsten trip out there. Someone's got to stay in your Airbnb, but nonetheless, I'd love to get out there again. Last time I was there was, probably like 6-7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been a minute, and I love it every time.
Yeah,
love it every time.
And to be honest with you, I think from the baseball side of it, and I know we're going to keep talking about the roster here, I think this year's is really a lot more interesting than it was last year. I know last year there was a lot of hype, okay? And my goodness, we were at spring training and there was talks of World Series and there were talks of, guys like Nelson Cruz being there with an opportunity to, be on a team that had this real shot to take down the Dodgers and win the World Series. And we all know, what the hype was last year and what ultimately happened. But from a baseball standpoint, right now, as currently constructed, there's way more to talk about as far as real competition for a lot of different spots, all these young guys that have all of a sudden become an enormously important part of this team's future. I think this year, honestly, from my perspective, is more interesting because last year was just, there weren't a lot of questions about the roster. There just weren't. It was a lot about the hype of the season and what they could do. But from a baseball standpoint, I think it's actually a lot more interesting this year, kind of, not X's and O's. This is baseball, but from a roster construction standpoint and who makes the team, who doesn't, and what this whole thing's going to look like.
Well, let's keep moving around. And we definitely started at a spot for great optimism at catcher. Again, like I will continue to say, I think the most underrated player right now on this Padres roster is Luis Camposano.
Mm-hmm.
But that was catcher. We're moving to first base now, and we are in a less happy spot for the San Diego Padres. Right now, on the Padres depth chart on MLB.com, there are two players listed at first base,
Mm-hmm.
Jake Cronenworth and Matthew Batten.
Mm-hmm.
Let me start with Matthew Batten.
Okay.
Matthew Batten is an organizational guy, a utility player. He can play multiple positions, right-handed batter who got a little bit of an opportunity in August and September.
And did well, I thought.
Did pretty well. And in fact, hit lefties very well.
Mm-hmm.
Hit 375 against lefties last year in limited action, 40 at-bats, but had a 957 OPS against left-handed pitchers. So as a utility guy who's going to swap around the infield, but maybe at this point get some platoon first base starts, Matthew Batten's not a bad guy to have on the roster.
No, if I had to put a percentage right now based on this roster, if Matthew Batten's going to be on the opening day roster, I'd put it as likely. I really would, based on the fact that he showed a little bit last year, hit the ball, and look, Matthew Batten has always hit in the minor leagues. Okay, this is a guy who came from Quinnipiac University, late round pick. It's pretty impressive, actually, where he's come from and what he's been able to do and get to the major leagues. So, look, I think Matthew Batten could be a useful piece on this team. He could certainly as we talk about first base, play a little first base for you. I don't know that that's ideal, but as far as like just the utility piece that can play around the infield, come off the bench, get a start per week, I don't see anything wrong with Matthew Batten and the idea of him being on this team. And right now, as currently constructed, I would say he's going to be on this opening day roster.
Jake Cronenworth had a tough 2023 and was brought into the season once the Bogart signing took place to be the team's presumptive first baseman.
Right.
He had been a second baseman and a two-time All-Star in the National League as a second baseman, and the thought was that the bat could carry over to a premium position that in his limited time previously at first base, especially in 2020 when he just broke in there, filling in for Hosmer, that he was going to be really good with the glove, that he would be a shortstop playing first base, and that as such, even if he didn't hit 30 homers or even 25, that it would be okay. He would be a serviceable first baseman. Unfortunately for Jake, that didn't happen. Speaking specifically as a first baseman, he had 396 plate appearances last year and hit 212 with 7 homers, 299 on base, 354 slugging, struck out 71 times. He was statistically one of the worst first basemen in the National League last year. Now at second base, he hit like a very good version of himself. Hit 288 in limited time at second base. But it really felt, and you're a lot closer to the players, the team, to the field than I have been, Sam. So I'm just curious if you think the weight of that position transfer kind of affected Cronenworth last year.
That's a great question. Was the weight of moving to first base? I mean, look, if you're looking to explain that drop off, then sure, put it as a possibility. I'll say this, Craig, I didn't get that sense, in talking to Jake. I really didn't. I didn't get the sense that it obviously was a transition, but look, he had played a little first base before, and I don't know that I felt like he was trying to, do something different or be a new kind of hitter because he was playing first base. I know there's been a lot made about, him trying to lift the ball and sort of what looked like, at least last year, a change from the approach which worked for him as a second baseman, which was part of the reason he had so much value as a second baseman because of what he did offensively. I didn't get that sense, honestly, throughout the course of the season. But if you're looking for reasons, it certainly could be one. From my perspective with Jake offensively this year, and this is assuming that he is, for the most part, your everyday first baseman. And look, a lot could change between now and opening day with trades and signings and all of it. But let's assume he's going to be your everyday first baseman, much like he was last year. You just want Jake to be Jake. Like, I don't want to even get that wrapped up in the value part of it. Like, I think we all understand from an offensive standpoint and like a WRC plus standpoint, he is more valuable as a second baseman. We get it. But unfortunately, however you want to look at it, with this team right now, well, you've got a second baseman in Kim and a third baseman in Manny and a shortstop in Xander. So Jake's playing first base because that's where he fits in on this current roster. Like, I just want Jake to go back to being the guy we saw in 2022 and 2021. And that level of production, first base, second base, we know that's better than what he showed last year. So, I know there's been a lot made about the value of where he fits, but to me, like is currently constructed, if you can get what you got from him or somewhere close to 2021, 2022 production, I'll take that. I take that 100%. So that's a great question. I didn't feel that way, like that was the reason. Now, could it have been that he was trying to do something different because he was playing first base? Could have been. I didn't get that sense, but anything is possible when you're trying to describe what was obviously just an offensive season that wasn't anywhere close to what he's been.
This is the most important season of Jake Cronenworth's career.
Yeah.
Having said that, the Padres took the true risk out of it because they gave him a contract extension that a year later looks not good
Yeah.
for the San Diego Padres. I mean, the day it was signed, it seemed like an odd move. At the time, it seemed like a reward. And Cronenworth clearly has a ton of value in the clubhouse and is a player that is a respected part of this core, is considered a part of the core. But from his numbers in 2022 or 2020 to 2023, it's been an arrow pointing down in every metric. In every metric, there hasn't even been one that didn't show incremental progressive decline for Jake Cronenworth. So he needs that to go back up this year. If it doesn't go back up, he's a year or two, he's approaching a barrier he does not want to get to, where teams consider why they want to put him on on a roster. If he bumps back up, he's a core member of the San Diego Padres for years to come, and or a much more tradable asset in years to come. Either way, this is the biggest year of Cronenworth's career.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating year for him. And look, you talked about, baseball savant sliders. Look, they're not pretty when it comes to Jake in those either. And that's not a huge surprise based on the traditional numbers either. But I'm with you. It's a huge year for him. And not just for him personally, but you're right. Like, for the Padres and their relationship to him. Now, he signed the contract. Okay, right. That contract is signed in ink, and he's going to get every dollar, and good for Jake. Yes. Okay, because he's a great story when you go back and you look at, the trade and him being a two-way player, even back at Michigan. Like, it's a really, really good story. The fact that he got the contract, I think, and look, I was guilty of it at the time too. And I will say this, I was guilty of it during spring training last offseason when they were signing guys like Bogarts and Cronenworth's contract. Remember, get signed. Wasn't opening day, but it was day 2, day 3 of the season. We had the press conference. I'm talking to Jake in the tunnel after, and we're playing it on the air and all good stuff. Look, everything at that point was roses, right? 2023 had not happened yet. And it was like, hey, look at this core. Jake's a fan favorite. He's a solid hitter. He can play lots of positions. Yeah, the money number is probably a little high, but you know what? This is a guy that you want as part of your organization. But you're right, from the team perspective of, well, forgetting about the contract, how does he just fit on a baseball level, but also, yeah, from a trade value level? Because I don't think it's impossible that if he were to hit the ball a lot better in 2024, and depending on what this team is doing over the course of the season, like, or in years to come, there's, it's not impossible that, to free up space for somebody else, or if you're thinking about extending Kim, whatever it might be, like that, you could move him. Yeah,
Kim,
it's a very important season. Yes, it's a very important season for him and in the Padres, and how the next year to many years go when it comes to Jake Cronenworth in the brown and gold. I'm with you.
Yeah, the Padres cannot have all of Kim, Cronenworth, and Merrill on the team unless one of them decides to become an outfielder, which seems like a mistake for every one of those players at their various stages of their career. Yeah. So something's going to move. Something's got to move at some point. The most obvious move is Kim to move out the door at the end of his contract for free agency. With all the bobbleheads, I was thinking before they were going to trade him. Now I'm thinking maybe they'll extend him in Seoul. I don't know.
I did you guys talk about the giveaways yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So number one, and I truly mean this. I'm not just saying it because it's the Padres, but I actually thought the giveaways were, for the most part, really, really good. Like, awesome. I thought the video was actually really, really good too. Yeah, they did a really good job with that video. They clearly didn't have the or I'm assuming here, but they didn't have the prototypes of a couple of the bobbleheads, which
it's normal.
And I'm sure as well, from my days in minor league baseball, happens. Okay, sometimes at least in the minors, there was a question of whether the bobbleheads would get there on time for the day of the game.
Hey, supply chain the last couple of years, bobbleheads on barges off the shore
happens.
It's real.
But the frisbee they had for the Hassan Kim part of it, I thought was great. I was like, now I don't know if they'd give away frisbees at a game, but I thought, you got to give away those frisbees too. You got to give away those frisbees too. These frisbees are cool. So, yes, the bobbleheads. I mean, look, if you want to glean stuff from promotional schedules, I do it at your own risk, because I don't know that that's the way these things work. And quite frankly, these promotional schedules have to be set way, way in advance so they can get the bobbleheads and get them to 40,000 people on the day they're supposed to be there. So, look, hey, if Ha-Seong Kim ends up getting traded, it would not be the first time that somebody had a bobblehead or a promotional giveaway and they were not there for the date that the giveaway was supposed to be.
It'll be Kim plus 40,000 bobbleheads plus a can of paint to paint them to the new team color. And it's going to all be part and parcel in the deal.
That's extra sponsorship. You get a paint sponsor on.
There you go.
There you go.
So that's first base. I'll just say to tag it, I look at a couple of players in free agency that could help the Padres at this position at a reasonable cost. And number one on my list, and people who've been listening to Annie and Elsten since the start have heard me say it before, is Carlos Santana. Santana's a switch hitter. He's a plus glove player. He's about a 20 home run hitter. He walks a decent amount. He'll probably hit in the low 220, 230 range for you, but he gives you thump and defense at the position, and he's a switch hitter. That, of course, if you bring him in, means that Cronenworth isn't your everyday first baseman. Another guy is the guy who was here, Garrett Cooper. He is still out there. And as an option that could be the hot hand that carries the position or a good platoon that bolsters the position, I think either one of those guys, would be a nice within the Padres budget acquisition.
I agree with you on Cooper in particular. Look, Cooper, if you go look at his numbers in Miami, solid hitter, like very, very solid hitter. And you're right. The price point is where it starts, right? Because like Rhys Hoskins would have, just from a baseball standpoint, been a fit, play first base, DH for you, has a track record. But meanwhile, he ends up getting $17 million per year. And it does not appear that the Padres are going to pay $17 million per year for that player right now. So, yeah, look, the money part of it limits the options, but I'm with you. Santana or Cooper, like we said in the first hour, professional hitters.
Yes.
Get them.
We need them now.
It will get to a point where the names aren't all that important, but just getting some guys who are major league players and you can rely on at least a little bit based on the track records, that will at some point become the most important thing.
We'll sail through the positions on the infield that are completely locked down in the next segment when we roll forward. Craig Elsten, Sammy Levitt, Frank Marchese here. It's Annie and Elsten on a Friday, rolling towards 2 o'clock. It's your new midday hang right here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Annie and Elsten with you on 97.3 The Fan. Your new midday hang is, I'm hanging with Sammy Levitt today and loving this chance to do some in-depth Padres talk with you. We talk Padres every single day on this day part from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. and feel like we at least devote half of the show every day to a team that hasn't done anything except for sign Usa Go in the entire time that I've been on this station. So I feel like we're really holding the fort.
Is that... Yeah, I guess that would be the only signing.
Yeah, Matsui and Go.
Only trade, only signing. Matsui and Go. What else has actually happened? So there was the Scott Barlow trade, the Soto trade.
Yeah. That's it.
Is that it?
That's it.
Have there been four
Signing
major
Matsui.
league? Well, so have there been 4 major league transactions? Is that it?
All quiet on the Western
It's not
Front.
many more if that's it. So
yeah.
To be fair, there's a lot of things that have happened this offseason.
A
lot of major things
Absolutely.
that have happened this offseason. So
yeah, as far as roster, I guess
they've rebuilt Gallagher Square. They've done a lot of physical improvements.
Yeah, should be cool.
But that's not really what we're looking for
That's
on
now
Sports Talk Radio.
which is now flooded.
Yeah, well.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yikes.
You know, I walked by a construction site. Where was it? Was it in PB? I don't remember. And yeah, it was rough after the rain. Really, really rough.
We've taken some time to look at catcher and first base as we continue our position player roster preview. I think given that there's a lot more certainty on the left side of the infield, we'll kind of buzz past that and just with a comment on the obvious incumbents. At second base, well, it's Ha-Seong Kim right now. He would be the expected starting second baseman unless Manny Machado is unable to go. And is put into a DH position to start the season. That would, in many ways, alleviate the bottleneck in the Padres infield, and that Kim could play at third base, Bogarts at short, Cronenworth could play second. You could sign a first baseman like we were just talking about, a Santana or a Cooper, that could man that position on a more everyday basis until Manny's elbow got all the way up to snuff. But who knows? It's Manny. He might be winging it across from foul territory in Seoul. Yeah.
We're going to find out a lot at spring training, I would assume, sort of at the very beginning about where he's at as far as that elbow and the likelihood, the reality of him playing third base on opening day. I don't know if that's a reality or not, but look, to your point, seems like there's a pretty good shot that he may DH to start, which is okay. And you're right. Like, you know, you're in a spot with the roster where it's not really that bad of a thing because Manny can DH and Kim goes to third, Cronenworth goes to second, or somebody else is playing second base on certain days. But again, and goes back to our first base conversation, at this moment, the only other guy on the roster, presumably, if he's on it, Matthew Batten, he's the only other guy that would play first base. And is that, I mean, it could be the scenario. I mean, I don't know. I would think not. I would think by the time opening day rolls around, there's somebody else on this roster, whether it be via trade or free agency, that can play some first base and give you a pretty good bat at the plate. So, yeah. Look, the Manny question will be a question, I think, in spring training and towards opening day of what is his status. And I just don't know. Look, typically Manny doesn't, you don't find out a ton about his, ailments and bangs and bruises. And look, to his credit, we saw in 2022, you know what? He's sort of earned that reputation because, sometimes when that ankle injury happened, I think we all thought he was going to be out for months, right?
Yeah.
And what was it? I mean, within 10 days, he was back, I think. So, and ended up basically carrying them to the postseason. So, look, you don't get a ton of information. I will say though, in September, when he was talking about potentially getting surgery, I was about as honest as, at least in my 2 seasons, that you heard Manny about his health and him really giving you some real good info about what was going on and what was troubling him and the potential plan for it. But look, on all the storylines heading into spring training and I think towards opening day right now, I don't think, the Manny part of it, it's just going to be what it is, right? If he has to DH for a period of time, they're going to have to figure it out. But you never know with Manny. For all we know, he will be in Seoul, like you said, playing third base and looks fine. You just don't know at this point.
If Kim is the second baseman, and Cronenworth is there, and Matthew Batten is there. It makes it hard for these next two players to make the team. Eggy Rosario, Tucupita Marcano, who's back in the organization. At least Marcano is a left-handed bat. This Padres roster, its 40-man roster, is just absent of quality left-handed hitters.
Right.
So if anything, Marcano just has his sidedness going for him. Rosario almost undoubtedly is a starter at El Paso to begin the year, unless he has just a knockout spring training and really, if he was taking anyone's job, it would be Batten's job, right?
Right. Yeah, you would think.
So there you go. That's where second base is. It's Kim. It would be good if it was Cronenworth, and it's probably not going to be. He's probably going to be the first baseman.
Right.
At third, it's Manny. It's Kim. If it's not Manny,
right.
Batten is an option there. All those same guys, Batten, Rosario, Marcano, they all could play third base. Batten is okay there. I don't think any of the others you're super psyched about seeing them at the hot corner. And then that brings you to the fascinating thing that is shortstop. And Xander Bogaerts is our shortstop.
Right.
He'll be the opening day shortstop. There's almost no question about it. But I did say this yesterday on the air, and I didn't disbelieve it when I said it, so I'll say it again. In the world, the fantasy world I've encountered with the bobbleheads, where we're not going to move away from Ha-Seong Kim, where he's going to be a part of this team for years, you can't sign Kim to an extension and not make him your shortstop, because he is the best defensive shortstop on this team. There's just no question about it. And if it's a year left on his deal and Xander's going to be here a while, I get why Bogaerts would be the shortstop. But if Kim is here for a while, he needs to be the shortstop. And then we're now in the process of figuring out whether it's second base or first base, where Xander fits long-term on this team.
It would answer some questions. Like, I'm thinking about it now. So let's say, hypothetical world, you sign Kim long-term, right? You say, okay, Xander, you're here for a while. You've got the money. Go play first base. And he does. Say, okay, Jay Cronenworth, you're, barring a trade, you're going to be here for a while. You go play second base, where that value proposition makes a lot more sense. Manny, you're going to be here for a while. And Kim, you're going to be here for a while. And now you're at you're a great defender everywhere, but especially at shortstop, that's where we get the most value out of your defensive prowess. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, that's how I think it would have to be if you were considering keeping Kim here long term. Now, how does that conversation ultimately go with Xander? I don't know. I mean, look, Xander was pretty good at shortstop last year by what you look at. Again, like you said, right now, no doubt he's going to be your everyday shortstop over the course of his career as he gets deeper into his 30s and late 30s. It would seem that there will have to be an adjustment, whether it's Ha-Seong Kim or somebody else. I know Xander's been asked about that first base question. I don't think that's happened, aside from something crazy happening that we don't foresee. But look, I think long term, that's a question that's going to have to get answered, is where is he going to play as he gets a little bit older. But to me, the Xander to first base conversation, there are so many things that would have to happen between now and then, right? With Kim, with Cronenworth. Yeah. So for now, for 2024, I'm with you. I mean, it's Xander Bogaerts.
And we all hope that he has that second year of a big contract season where he bounces to a 5-WAR type offense. And if he does that, Padres are going to generate runs this year.
Yes. Look, Xander's a really, really good offensive player. Like, if you go and you look at the guy he was in Boston, this is a great offensive player. And it's so interesting because we saw it at the start of the year before the wrist injury. Okay, he was great those first few weeks. We saw it towards the end. He was on fire towards the end of the season in September, where the whole team was playing well, albeit against some not very good competition. But it was that middle portion that really kind of took down the season. And I keep going back to the wrist and how there was such a sharp decline when that happened, right? Yeah. Like, the more I've thought about it over the offseason, like, when you look at Xander's back of the baseball card, like Manny likes to say, and you consider who he was, and also, look, there are other factors, new league, big contracts, new city. We've seen it time and time again. The first year of those deals, a lot of times don't go all that well. I mean, hey, Trey Turner was not having a good year at all, right? And then he sort of turned it around, just as another example of another shortstop from that same free agent class. I don't know. To me, the wrist injury happened and it sort of went sideways. So I'm with you when we talk about like things to not to count on, but that I think are pretty good bets. I'm willing to bet Xander Bogaerts has a much better second year overall. I just based on the player he's been and quite frankly, Craig, I think from a leadership standpoint, look, he's somebody who was a leader in Boston, who's a one World Series, who I think has all the makings of somebody who can be a real leader on this team. Not to say that he wasn't last year, but it was an interesting situation. You're walking into a clubhouse where Manny's been there. If you got the Fernando part of it, where he's this, superstar, but also is coming off, missing a year for a variety of reasons.
Couldn't be the leader.
You've got Soto, who's still hasn't got his big I mean, there is a lot of stuff going on for Xander Bogaerts to walk in there and say, hey, follow me.
Right.
So for Xander, I'm fascinated on the field. I'm also fascinated inside that clubhouse because I do think he's that guy. I mean, that's the guy who was in Boston. I mean, like when he got signed, and I'm sure you heard it too. I mean, everybody I spoke to was like, this guy is it.
Yeah.
Like every Red Sox fan, every reporter, everybody I spoke to, they hated losing him.
Right.
For so many reasons beyond even the baseball.
Right.
So you're right. If he is the Xander Bogaerts of the Boston Red Sox, it's another thing where you say, okay, offensively, there are question marks. There are big ones, but it should be all right.
We've covered all the way around the diamond, the dirt part of it. There's only one thing left, and that's the thing that we just really don't have. We're going to check out the Padres outfield when we return. It is Annie and Elsten.
I'm going to send my softball tape. Send it to AJ.
You are right on the cusp of being signed. What's your affordability? It's your new midday hang, Annie and Elsten on the Fan. Tune in to Kick Off with Boomer and Mike Valenti. Every week, Boomer and Valenti preview the entire slate of NFL games. Analysis from Boomer with a very gruff voice. Picks from Mike, the biggest stories in the league. It's all packed into an hour, and it's tonight at 7 o'clock right here on 97.3 The Fan. Always live on the free Odyssey app, presented nationally by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos, brought to you by those who drink it. And by Lowe's. Lowe's knows home improvement. Craig Elsten, Sammy Levitt, Frank Marchese here. We are rolling toward the 12 o'clock sports fix coming up at 12 p.m. We'll get you caught up to date on everything happening in local and national sports, all the way from the Farmers Leaderboard to the Arena Weekend. This is the Friday, Sammy, weekend preview edition. So it's extra stuff. It's got all your local teams. Where are they playing? When are they playing? How are they playing? Hopefully well. We won't answer the how, but the where and when. We'll give you the basics. We'll do it all in 10 minutes or less.
All right.
Coming up at 12 o'clock. Right now, this was going to be Frank's football segment. We're going to put that at 12:20 now, Frank. And I'm overly curious because it could be anything. You told me you hate football, so this is going to be great.
No, I like football. I hate the NFL, and yes, it will be a legitimate look at the AFC and NFC championship games coming up this week.
Very fair. But if it was illegitimate, it might be funnier. I mean, just consider illegitimacy as an option for Frank's. It's your segment, dude. So whatever you want to do, throw paint at the wall, whatever you want to do. That is your segment.
I'll start with a 10-minute rant on the NFL, and then I'll leave 30 seconds for the games. How about that?
That's if that's the way it goes, it's the way it goes. It's coming up. That's coming up
Frankie's
after
Football Friday.
Frankie's Football Friday. It is a fresh kit Friday on Annie and Elsten today, going with the San Diego Sockers retro throwbacks from just a couple of years ago, emulating their 1984 through 86 kits, really 83 through 86 kits. This is a Paul Wright throwback there, but honestly, this kit was worn more by like the Vidal Fernandez, Gene Wilrich, Julie V class of San Diego Sockers. Craig Childs, the all-time Sockers leading scorer, will join us at 12:35 on the program today. But this segment, we're going to wrap up our position player preview for the San Diego Padres. Preseason position player preview, Padres. All alliteration. We've left the outfield. I mean, we've left DH too. And these are the two spots the Padres. Let's talk about Fernando Tatis Jr. He's great, and we hope he's way better this year and has that Acuna second year back MVP, back to 40 homers, back to hitting near 300 type season. And again, if that happens, Padres are going to win some games.
Yeah, awesome. And it could happen. I mean, again, you don't want to guarantee anything. You don't want to say it's a safe bet because who knows, right? But when we talk about what this team could do and what some of these players could do, I'd put a lot of confidence in that Fernando, who, by the way, last year, considering missing a full year and considering switching to a brand new position in a brand new part of the field and doing it beautifully, well, offensively ended up giving you, I thought, a pretty good year, all things considered. But we know, based on what we've seen and who he is and his talent level, that it didn't scratch the surface of what he can be. And we've seen what he can be. So, look, the Fernando part of it, there's a lot of questions on this roster. There's a lot to discuss and decipher. With Fernando, it's pretty simple, okay? You know what you're getting in right field. It is a platinum glover. And offensively, you're just hoping that we see this full return of Fernando with a full offseason of work. It's funny. In talking to him, I think that part of it, not having a normal offseason at all last year, was a really big deal. I really do think it was. And I think the offseason is really important to him. Getting a chance to go down and play in the Dominican, really important to him. Not just, because it's his country and we know he has a lot of pride in it, but from a baseball standpoint. I think the offseason is really important to him and what he does, and he didn't have anything close to a normal offseason or spring training, quite frankly, last year. Craig, it seems, and I don't want to put too much into it because I feel like everybody's saying it, but it sort of seems like he's primed for like an MVP caliber year, to have the Ronald Acuna Jr. type of season that he did a year ago in a similar situation where he was coming, into a full season with a normal off season and all of it. So Look, you can't look at Fernando, what he's done, his age, his talent level, and not be really excited about what he can do. And now it's going to be on Fernando to go out and accomplish that. And I'm with you. If he does, it's another thing to put in the very, very positive category.
Now, the best way to have Fernando Tatis Jr. have that giant break back into the elite offensive season is to not ask him to take over another position change and switch from right field to center field. I think most baseball evaluators would agree that it does make an impact on your life, on your planning, on everything. We talked about Crony going from second to first, right field to center field. Seems like it's no big deal. And maybe for Fernando Tatis Jr., frankly, it would be no big deal. Maybe he's the type of player that would completely overcome that. But I just say, if you want to ensure your best chance for the biggest season, it's Tatis in right field. Now, here's the problem. Center field was Trent Grisham. He was traded as part of the Soto deal. Left field was Juan Soto. He was literally the Juan Soto deal. So he was traded. No one's been replaced. They haven't signed a AAA outfielder. Cal Mitchell is the only outfield addition to this roster since the Soto trade.
Right.
And that leaves us with the Padres' fifth outfielder, who on a great team would probably be their sixth outfielder, Jose Azocar, as the second outfielder on this team. Right now, he'd be the everyday full-time center fielder for the San Diego Padres.
Let me ask you a question. When that trade was made, the Soto trade, including Trent Grisham, the Grisham part of it, what did you think? Because to me, and I'm curious to hear your take, because to me, I kind of feel looking back now, just based on there being two outfielders on the roster, and the only other one not named Fernando Tatis Jr. is Jose Azocar. I was okay with the Grisham part of it, but in retrospect, it's like, well, we know what Grisham didn't give you offensively the last couple of years, but he was a Gold Glove center fielder. You at least got that, and you at least got, I suppose, two things offensively, some pop, and also this, always potential that Trent was going to sort of figure it out offensively again. What did you think at the time?
Well, I have gone past the point of believing that there's another level offensively for Trent Grisham. I think he has been exposed as he is what he is at the plate. And if he has a maturity and a newfound approach in New York or a new place, awesome. Via con Diaz. I hope it works out.
Look, I think he's going to be great in that kind of role where he'll get a start per week. He'll come off the bench in a small park. He has power.
Right.
Like, play good defense. If they ever need him in a late defensive, type of spot, fine. I think there's a chance he's going to go to New York and be really good for the role they ask him to be in.
So, yeah, if you told me we would never replace him.
Right. And that's what I'm getting at. Right. That's what I'm getting at. Because look, at the time in early December, that trade gets made. And I think I speak for a lot of people. I didn't really blink twice at it.
Yeah,
I was like, okay.
I was fine to be over the Trent Grisham
time. Yeah, it's time. With that said, now you're looking at it, it's like, well, and again, there's a lot to be figured out here. So who knows how we look at it in a few weeks or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you could make the case where it's like, well, if you had at least the Gold Glove defense in center field, at least it gives you somebody what you're getting, at least, instead of blank space and or Jose Azocar. So
is it a trade for a full-time starter? Is it signing the placeholder class of Jurickson Profar, Raimel Tapia, Aaron Hicks? I'm going to keep saying Aaron Hicks and hope someone in the Padres office is recruiting this guy to play at the major league minimum, a $10 million player. Have him come and be take a flyer.
Sure.
Take a flyer on someone, because that's where we are at now, is flyers, replacement level players, placeholders, unless you make a trade. Next hour, we'll try and make a trade again, try and find an outfielder again. But there it is, your Padres preseason positional roster preview. And again, a lot of offensive, interesting spots, catcher especially, a lot of question marks once you get out to the big, wide green pasture. Sammy and Frank and I are back. The 12 o'clock Sports Fix will kick off hour number 3. It's Annie and Elsten, your new midday hang on 97.3 The Fan. 12 o'clock on the Fan. It is your new midday hang. Annie and Elsten here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Annie Heilbronn and Braden Suprenant are off to today. Craig Elsten here with you, holding down the fort and having a ton of fun with Sammy Levitt and Frank Marchese joining us. Now we are all about to get into the swing of things because we've hit the midway portion of the show, guys. This is 12 o'clock. This is the spot where we say, hey, it's midday. You're jumping in your car. You're in the drive-through. Maybe you're just pulling us up on your laptop because you've cracked open that Trader Joe's salad at your desk and you're starting to sift through the ingredients. However it is, we know it's a busy day. Why don't we just give you the sports world in 10 minutes or less? That's what we do. We call it the 12 o'clock sports fix. We throw a music bed under it, and we get rolling. And I will start things off today. We're going to get all three guys involved here in rotating fashion. And we'll start with today's top story in local sports. That is, of course, the PGA Tour event that is taking place at Torrey Pines, the Farmers Insurance Open. It is moving day, round 3. Remember, this is a Wednesday through Saturday this year and in the past couple of years. And right now it's Stefan Jaeger is in first by 2 strokes. He is your leader at 13 under through 2 holes on the course in his third round. Tomas Detry is 2 strokes behind at 11 under par. Nikolai Hochgaard, a great story from Bryce Miller about him in the UT today. 22 years old, flew from Dubai, basically never played the course. He's third at 10 under par. Aaron Rye, Matthew Pavon, and Michael Kim, San Diego's Michael Kim, they are all at 9 under par. A little bit down, Tony Finau is at 8 under. Patrick Cantlay is at 7 under par. Xander Schauffele also at 7 under par. Those are some of your notables in the field and your leaderboard at the Farmers Insurance Open as I toss it over to Frank for all the college hoops.
Yeah, so college basketball busy weekend around San Diego. San Diego State will be off this weekend. They will play Colorado State, number 24 ranked Colorado State, on Tuesday night. UCSD held off UC Riverside last night, a close game, 66-65 at Lone Tree Arena. Tritons are now 7-1 in the Big West. They are in a 3-way tie for first. They will play UC Davis tomorrow at 2 p.m. USD will travel to Pepperdine on Saturday. That game will tip off at 5 p.m. Point Loma on the road in Hawaii beat Hawaii Pacific 78-75 in overtime. They will play Chaminade tomorrow. CSU San Marcos did lose last night at Chico State 95-61. They will travel to Cal Poly Humboldt tomorrow night.
All right. Frank, nice job there with the college basketball news. The MLB cold stove, not very hot as of late. A couple of headlines for you. Diamondbacks and outfielder Jock Peterson, who apparently is on a mission to play for every NL West team, maybe aside from the Padres right now. D-backs and Peterson agree on a 1-year, $12.5 million deal. 12.5 is what he's guaranteed. He'll get 9.5 this season, $3 million buyout, and then has a $14 million option next season. So Jock Peterson going to Arizona. Rangers also signing right-hander David Robertson to a 1-year deal, reportedly $11 or $12 million at a 3.03 ERA and 65-plus innings with the Mets and the Marlins in 2023. Jock Peterson, Craig, to Arizona.
And then he'll go to the Rockies. And then when he's 36... he'll sign that 1-year pinch hitter deal with us, and then he will join Steve Finley and Matt Hergis and the other all-NL Westers.
Tell you what, I think the D-backs have had a really good offseason after a really good season. I really do.
I don't like to hear that, but
I'm sorry.
Can't help but agree. But I don't like to hear it, but I can't help but
Eduardo Rodriguez, Eugenio Suarez.
Do we sign players too? Never mind. Arena preview. It's time to let you know what's happening with all of our arena teams. We'll start with our beloved San Diego Gulls. They are at Iowa Wild both tonight and tomorrow. Gulls are 5-4-1 in their last 10. They have climbed to the precipice of mediocrity, gentlemen. They are in 9th place in the 10-team Pacific Division. 1 point out of last, 14 points away from 5th, though. If they just got on a little bit of a tear, they could get to at least the middle of the table. Our equally beloved Seals continue their long road trip. They are at Philadelphia Wings Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Seals in 3rd place in the National Lacrosse League with a 4-2 record. Philly is 2-3. And our even more beloved San Diego Sockers Boy, they've got a rough weekend this weekend. 3rd out of 4 interstate back-to-backs. They will play Alumni Night tomorrow against the St. Louis Ambush. That's a 7:05 p.m. kickoff at Pechanga Arena. And then the club flies commercial to Tacoma the next morning for a Sunday evening match at 5:05 p.m. Both those games will be on Twitch. I'll have the call of the Saturday night game, 7 o'clock on Twitch channel MASL_soccer. Frank, big news in Europe.
Yes, big news in European soccer. Stunning news out of Anfield, where longtime Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp announced that he will leave his position at the end of the Premier League season. Now, a couple things I can think of as to why someone would leave is they think they've gone as far as they can. They're just done. They're burnt out, which happens. Or they have inner knockings that something bigger could possibly be on the horizon. That's
I could
what
see
take from it.
burnout. I mean, he's been at such a high level since 2015. Liverpool is still on top. They could win all the trophies this year. They're right in the mix for all of it. Something bigger? What's too much bigger than Liverpool, right? I mean, is another club going to get him on a big money deal? I would suspect he's kind of a Phil Jackson type, Frank. I think he's going to bide his time, wait for the right spot, maybe recharge for a year or two and be the sexy manager for hire for everyone. And then he'll get that big, sick, sweet deal. That's my guess on Klopp. But Sammy, what's going on with the hand egg instead of the football?
Yeah, I have no opinion on Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp, but I will tell you about the NFL. It is Conference Championship Sunday here on 97.3 The Fan. We'll have both games for you, the Ravens and the Chiefs, and the Lions and the 49ers. Right now, Baltimore up to a 4-point favorite over Kansas City. San Francisco up to a 7.5-point favorite over Detroit. That seems like a lot to me.
It does.
I think that's going to be a good game. Lions are good. Would not be surprised if the Lions won that game. Really great matchups. That Kansas City-Baltimore matchup between Mahomes and Lamar Jackson is terrific. The Swifties, I'm sure, pulling for the Chiefs. Other NFL news. Falcons hired Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris as their new head coach. That's a big deal. But also, remember, they interviewed Bill Belichick. They don't want him. Nobody wants Bill, which I think is pretty shocking. Now, the great Matt Scraby on the Scraby Show yesterday, I heard him talking about this, and he put out the idea that maybe Bill Belichick will just be done. Now, he may be done because nobody wants to hire him, which I think would be a shock, even next year. He's not done because he wants that Don Shula all-time wins record. Okay, if Bill Belichick can continue coaching, I bet he's going to do it, but I think that's pretty shocking that he may end up without a team for next season. But Raheem Morris, who did a really good job with the Rams, very deservedly gets the head coaching position in Atlanta.
I've got your NBA news for a Friday, my favorite league that's not baseball. Lakers romped past the Chicago Bulls in a defense optional special last night at Staples Center, 141-132. The All-Star Game starters have been named. LeBron James makes history. He is starting his 20th straight NBA All-Star Game. The previous high for All-Star Game starts was Kareem with 19. LeBron passed Kareem on the scoring list last year. Now he passes him for most All-Star Game starts ever. Your All-Star Game starters for the West: LeBron, Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander beats out Stephen Curry for the first time. Nikola Jokic and Kevin Durant. That's a whale of a starting five. For the East, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo with Damian Lillard, Tyrese Halliburton, Jason Tatum, and the MVP, Joel Embiid. Clippers at Toronto today, the hottest team in the league, the Clippers, and that leads to the game of the weekend, Clippers at Celtics on Saturday. Best in the East and the ascendant team in the West. Lakers will be at the Warriors on Saturday, Frank.
Jalen Brunson should have been in that starting five for the East.
Over Dame, maybe.
He had a 38-point game last night, against
Jalen
Denver.
Brunson.
Stars beat the Quackers 4-3 in the NHL last night. That was overtime. The Kings will play the Avalanche tonight. The Gulls are not the only team that's going to be playing the Wild. The Ducks will be playing the Wild tomorrow night as well. Kings also take on the Blues on Saturday. The Kings have been in a free fall here lately.
Yeah, 12 of 14 they've lost.
Yeah, they've been really bad. One team, though, that has not been bad, the Edmonton Oilers, they shut out the Chicago Blackhawks last night 3-0. Last night. For their 15th straight win, too short of tying the NHL's all-time record, 15 to ever win 15 or 15-plus games in a row.
All right, let's go to the world of tennis. Australian Open going on right now. I told you guys this off the air, but I'll tell it on the air now. I've been to the Australian Open in Melbourne. The funny part about that is that I grew up 15 minutes away from the U.S. Open in Flushing, Queens. Never been. But I've been to the Australian Open on the other side of the world.
That's amazing. What year was that? When did you go?
I went, what was that? 2020? 2019? Okay. Sorry, no, 2019.
All right.
Yeah, and I saw Nadal actually play against an Australian who I can't remember his name. It was awesome.
That's sick.
Australia is awesome, and I didn't go for the tennis. I just happened to be in Melbourne when the Open was going on. It was cool. Okay, updates from the Australian Open. Novak Djokovic upset in the semifinal. Hopefully I'm getting the names right here. By Jannik Sinner.
I would have gone Yannick.
Yannick, sorry. Yannick. Definitely is Yannick, not Jonik. Sinner's going to the final. He'll face Daniel Medvedev in the men's final. So no Alcaraz, no Djokovic. Now I'm getting Nikola Jokic. Okay.
No Jokic either. He did not make it either.
All right. So anyway, Medvedev against Sinner in the final. Women's final, Arina Sabalenka against Zhang Qinwen. That'll be tonight. The women's final. So good stuff. Those Australian Open matches. I love the tennis, and I like playing tennis too. But Australian Open, it's on really, really bad hours here in the U.S. So hard to follow. But to be honest with you, at least on the men's side, you're not missing like an all-time match. You know, no Alcaraz, Novak's not in it. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Should be fun.
Well, there it is. We started about a minute late, and we had the weekend update, so it really filled everything out. But there was 11 minutes to get you caught up on everything in the world of sports, your 12 o'clock sports fix. We do it Monday through Friday at high noon right here on Annie and Elsten. And then what we do, Sam, is at the end of the segment, then we kind of pick something out of that whole melange of information that we want to talk about. And for me, it's Bill Belichick. This is probably what Gwen and Chris will lead their show with at 2 o'clock. We're not a football forward show. We're a Padres forward show, but I am not a fan of Bill Belichick. You know, I think he did a lot to coarsen the relationship between teams, players, and the working press. I believe he, by finding success while simultaneously making just an unnecessary jerk such a key part of his thing. Crazily, because the NFL is such a copycat league, people are like, oh, well, being a jerk now is important, and withholding all information is important. Right. And that is seeped all the way down to where in the Major Arena Soccer League, they won't tell you guys who showed up until an hour before they show up, because, you know, if they lose, they're on to Cincinnati. Like, it's just, it's a perversion of the relationship between coach and the press that didn't have to happen. So that's my personal animus against Belichick, is what he's done to the industry via his just willful decision to not accept a part of his job. But I thought it was really interesting. I was reading something on Yahoo about this morning, Sam, that Belichick probably isn't going to get that job that you're saying, well, yeah, he's going to chase Shula.
Right.
He's got to take the job. But the thing is, he was hired at age 48 by Robert Kraft. And when he came to the Patriots, he did not come as the greatest head coach in NFL history, who is a complete dictator and must handle all aspects of the club, from team president to general manager to head coach. He slowly gained that power year after year in New England as Tom Brady won Super Bowl after Super Bowl. Prior to Tom Brady, Bill Belichick was a losing coach, not a good record at all.
Sure.
Since Tom Brady, he's a losing coach, not a good record at all. With Tom Brady, he won Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl. And the thing is, when he went to, I read a long piece on Yahoo about this, when he went to Atlanta, Falcons are like, well, we're kind of interested in Belichick and the culture and this and that.
Right.
But we've got a GM. We've got a president of football.
Right.
We've got a director of scouting. And if we bring in Bill Belichick, we're telling all those guys who we have hired and counted on, you all have to take a back seat to Belichick. Now he's going to pick all the players.
Right.
Your GM, you got to chill now. You got to go answer phone calls or something. And it's pretty hard for someone who insists on having it all, coming off a terrible season, to have another team go, yeah, we're going to uproot half our front office to hire you.
If you want to poke holes in Bill Belichick, in his career, which has been legendary, okay, just based on the Super Bowls, all the winning, it is that who is he as a head coach without Tom Brady? And the answer to that to this point is not much. Now, look, defensively, he was a big-time defensive guy, defensive mind, defensive coordinator before he was the head coach in New England. But look, the Super Bowls, the winning, the Patriot way, all of it, now that you look back on it, seeing what he did before as a head coach and what he did after Brady left, yeah, I mean, it's with Brady. There is a clear distinction of who he was as a head coach with and without Tom Brady. Look, there are two jobs open still, right? There's Washington and there's Seattle.
Right.
Could he take one of those? Sure. Look, Washington has that second pick. Could in his 70s he say, you know what? I'm good for another 4 or 5 years. Let's go take one of these quarterbacks and maybe I can kind of find my Tom Brady 2.0 and win with a guy early in his career, a great young quarterback. He could say that. I think the danger right now for him, if you're telling me that none of these teams wanted to go out of their way to hire him this year, and there were so many openings and so many seemingly good fits. I mean, I know like Atlanta and potentially Dallas, those are two totally different situations, but fits in their own ways. Would there be a guarantee that he's getting a job next year, a year removed? It would seem to me like people talk about the gaps in the resume for us, normal people that, apply for jobs, not NFL head coaches. It would seem to me the farther you get away, the less likely you're getting another job.
Right.
So it's a fascinating scenario. Look, if I'm Washington, based on the history there of what they've been and all the struggles, if Bill Belichick wanted to come coach my team and you could draft a quarterback with him, I'd probably do it. But it's played out very, very differently than I think I thought and most people thought, because it just doesn't seem like he's in demand. I mean, so I don't know. But yeah, I think, Craig, to your point, like there's a potential here for, as good as Belichick has been, and arguably the greatest head coach in NFL history, there's potential here that the end could be pretty tarnished by what he didn't do with what he did without Brady there, and this idea that he could not get another job, and that's it. There's potential at the end here is going to be kind of weird. And by the way, New England, they're going to select a quarterback, and if he had done a little bit better, maybe he would be there to get another quarterback and stay there a little bit longer. But fascinating.
People who have great power have an opportunity to decide whether they will be kind, whether they will be generous, whether they will be cruel. And people in great power have the ability to be cruel, to be harsh, to be dark. And as long as you are at the top, the very top, you can be cruel.
Sure.
You can be as horrible an interpersonal type of person as you want to be. But the interesting thing is, when you lose that power, the cruelty is what remains. And to hook on to cruelty without a guarantee of power, it's a lot tougher, Bill.
So interesting. So you viewed all these years the whole Belichick act, if you will. See, I always viewed it as, we get it, this is what he does. But yeah, you're right. You can only do it if you're winning, and you're winning at the degree he's winning. It never really bothered me, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, it bothered you.
Absolutely.
The way that he was this way all this time.
Who was it?
I get it. Yeah.
18-0. I forget which reporter it was. It was Jim Gray or whoever it was.
Right.
But the person who had when you're the coach, the losing coach in the Super Bowl, you have to do the interview.
Yeah.
And I know it's difficult, but it's literally, you get paid millions of dollars. You're on national TV every time you walk in the field.
Right.
And it's the Super Bowl, the biggest event in the world. You do the interview. You reveal yourself in moments like that. Who you are as a person. He revealed himself. He's a dark, miserable human being that had in that moment, oh no, he was crushed because he lost. BS. He would have been just as miserable with the win.
Yeah.
He would have been, and we know this because he won over and over again. Abraham says, just say it, bro. With great power comes great responsibility. I mean, is it a corollary of Uncle Ben to Spidey? In some ways, yes. But when I'm taking it from a different direction, when you are at the top, you have those choices.
Right.
And so many people, when they get to that position of ultimate power, it corrupts them in terms of their character. And then when the power goes, the character remains.
Yeah.
So that's why I've never been a Bill Belichick fan. As well, I'll never be a Bill Belichick fan.
Yeah.
I'm not like dancing on his career grave or anything. He's 72. He's going to be revered as one of the great coaches of all time. People who, get into an inner circle with him and have had some incredible football conversation will talk about his intellect and his dedication and all of those things. But he chose to be mean, all the way through.
And as we're talking about it, and I'm not saying there's anything, scandalous going on, but I almost wonder if there's more to it. Like, it just seems so weird that nobody would hire him. That I don't know. Are other teams' owners asking Robert Kraft, like, hey, what's he like? What's he been like these last handful of years? And he's saying it wasn't good. Like, I wonder if there's a little more to it than, the idea that teams are just going in a different direction. Because to me, it's still shocking that he's in all likelihood not going to get another job right away based on who he is. Even with his personality and all of it and all the struggles he had the last few years in New England. I don't know. It's just very odd to me.
Adam Paul is reductive in the chat here. Sorry, Adam says, so all people who are in power who don't answer media are mean? That's a reductive comment. It's not a real question. No, we're talking about Bill Belichick. What he did all over and over again. If you want to extrapolate out to everything, do I think that people in professional sports have a responsibility to handle their job with the media? Of course, it is part of it. And it's gotten incredibly harder the last 20 years, incredibly harder than it was even just when I was doing your gig with Ben in 2000. It wasn't easy then. It's gotten incredibly harder. He's one of the people who changed the way that teams all the way down, like I said, handle the media, to do it from this position of fear, of circle the wagons, of give out nothing. And you can take it for what it want. And there's plenty of people who like that. There's plenty of people who just dislike the media in general or as an institution. And if you're mean to the media, that makes you good in my books. But I'm not going to change how I feel, regardless of that. And I see Bill Belichick as someone who added coarseness to the discourse for professional sports. We got to give Frank enough time for Frank's football segment. We got Greg Childs coming up as well in this hour. Busy hour on Annie and Elsten. It's your new midday hang. San Diego's #1 sports station. It's 97.3 The Fan. Wow. Almost 12:30 on the Fan. We sports fixed, we Belichicked. We Belichicked our way right out of a full Frank's football segment. Frank, what would you like to say about football?
Well, they play on a 100-yard field. The ball's brown. There's 4 teams left in the season.
Well, it's
the
actually
Super Bowl comes up in a couple weeks.
It's more than 100 yards, really. But
stop with
that's
you.
neither here nor there.
I guess if you want to go through it really quick, then that's
yes, Frank.
Sure.
It's Frank's Football Friday segment. Go through it.
All right. So
if we really want to, yes, we want. Well, I know we have this interview on. This is not my show, Craig.
I want to hear. I still want to hear it.
Okay,
I mean, I'll tell Craig we're going to be 5 minutes late. It's all good.
Okay, so there'll be Chiefs and Ravens for the AFC Championship game. That will be the noon start time on CBS this Sunday. Right now, Baltimore favored by 4 points. It opened up at 3.5. Overall series record between these two teams: Chiefs lead 7-5. Last time these two teams met, Ravens beat the Chiefs 36-35. There's the dyslexia kicking in. That was back on September 19th, 2021. In Baltimore. Two very, very good teams going up against each other. Ravens 13-4 on the season. Chiefs 11-6. Who do you guys got in this one?
I got Baltimore. I got Baltimore winning by 7 or more.
Sam?
I got Kansas City.
Okay. Over under 8 camera shots of Taylor Swift.
I'll take.
I mean, 9 is a lot.
Take the under. That's a lot.
I know
that's 2+ per quarter.
8's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of camera shots.
But it's Taylor Swift at the AFC Championship.
Yeah, but 8's a lot. I think.
Do you imagine they'll have a full side-by-side for the Super Bowl?
I kind of feel like I'm taking the over. I said over right away. I'm taking the over.
Okay. I'm going under. I've already taken a deep dive into, because she's going out on world tour soon, like in the next couple of weeks before the Super Bowl. So I've already figured out she'll be at the Super Bowl if the Chiefs are there, because she's got shows. I think she's in Tokyo, but then she has a show on the 10th, but Japan is way ahead time-wise. So she honestly, I'm sure private plane
on a PJ.
Yes, we'll be able to get to Vegas, and then she doesn't play. I think it's in Australia, the next show, for like another week. So she'll be at the Super Bowl for sure if they make it.
So now
but they won't, because Baltimore will win.
we discussed when we were doing Gwen and Chris a couple of weeks ago. You are a Swiftie.
Yeah, I love Taylor Swift.
Why do you have the tour schedule memorized?
Well, I don't. Well, I don't.
I'm a huge
just the early part.
I just looked into it, but I may be going at the end of the year.
Okay,
Vancouver. We'll see.
Wow,
Vancouver.
This is like a year away.
Look at this kid.
We'll see. It's a long ways away.
I want to go to Vancouver.
I have
Sounds
plans.
nice.
I have plans, but it's very hard to plan that far in advance, which is kind of has been.
We aren't promised
argument.
Tomorrow, Sammy.
It's easy. Just say I'm taking this day off. I'm going to Vancouver.
I understand, but like I don't know. There's just it's so far
Padres
away.
World Series.
Yes, in December. The parade's still ongoing.
Right.
But yes, I want to take Lamar. I can't pick against Mahomes. I don't know. To me, Kansas City.
Well, apparently Craig and I can pick against Mahomes, so that's
okay.
what we're doing. The NFC Championship game that will come on after that will be on Fox, scheduled start 3:30. The Detroit Lions looking for their first ever Super Bowl bid against the San Francisco Giants. San Francisco 49ers. The Niners right now favored by 7.5.
It's a lot
from what I can
see.
Really
high,
especially against a Detroit team that played a really, really close game last week. Detroit 12-5 on the season. San Francisco both 12-5 on the season. Both teams won their divisions right now. According to Matchup Predictor, and this is just the fans picking the game, 75% have the Niners at home winning this game.
Interesting.
That's a big, big swing, especially for a team that hasn't been there in quite a long time. Craig picked first. Sam, who do you got in this one?
I'm gonna take the Niners. Like, I love this Lions story. I love Dan Campbell. Goff's been great. They're a great team. I think it'll be a close, good game. That 7.5 is way too high. But I just feel like the Niners survived last week, not playing all that well. Purdy wasn't good. Their offense really didn't click on all cylinders. I think Purdy will be better. I think offensively they'll be better. They're at home. My heart says Lions. My head says 49ers, and I'm going with my head.
I'm taking the over in this game. I would not play. We talked to Ryan Horvat about this on yesterday's show. I would not play the spread on this game if you forced me to, for example, a sports talk radio segment like Frank's football segment. Then I would take the Lions to cover. I don't necessarily believe in Purdy yet, and he needs to prove it on Sunday. If he has the game they expect, probably the Niners will win and cover. But I like the over. I like both teams to score points on Sunday. And if you force me, I'll take the Lions.
All right.
As Sam said, San Francisco has been so up and down recently, and it always seems to work out that the team that has to face some sort of adversity always seems to make it to the big game or win. Detroit had a very tough game last week, and they were able to sweat that out. I think it's going to be Detroit. I think Detroit is going to go through. They're going to get to their first ever Super Bowl. I just have that gut feeling.
I would bet the money line then if I was you, because it'd be great if they did. And then you'd feel great. You'd feel great. You get a good price. So I'd go money line on Detroit Lions. I like it. Frank's football segment.
Good job, Frank.
Slightly truncated, but outstanding work.
Thank you. By the way, the over-under is 51.5, I think.
Yep. I'm going game. 52.
Yep. So that's the over-under.
All right.
I'm going a 31-24 type game and a victory for the over. And if the Niners win 31-24, it'd be a victory for Lions bettors as well with that dreaded half point. Okay. When we come back, we have a regular rotating soccer segment on this show, Sam. A couple weeks ago, we had on Tom Penn, the CEO of San Diego FC. Last week, we had on Casey Stoney, the head coach of San Diego Wave FC. And today, we're going to have on the greatest scorer in the history of the San Diego Sockers, their team captain, Craig Childs, as the Sockers get ready to take on St. Louis tomorrow night at the Sports Arena. That interview next on your new Midday Hang, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. The Odyssey app lets you jump back to the moments you missed on 97.3 The Fan. While you're listening to 97.3 The Fan, you can see what you missed and then click to listen on demand. If you missed a guest, a feature, or something crazy that happened from earlier, we got you covered. Download the free Odyssey app, search 97.3 The Fan, and tap earlier today to get started. That's AUDACY, the Odyssey app. Annie and Elsten here with you, minus Annie, plus Sammy Levitt. Got Frank Marchese here as well. This is a show that doesn't pay lip service to covering soccer. We cover soccer in the city of San Diego, all of our pro teams, including our beloved San Diego Sockers. Full disclosure, been an employee of the Sockers off and on since 2009. However, the winningest club in the history of San Diego sports, 16 championships. You can't win here. We got a cursed sports town. Like, dude, come to a Sockers match. You may be surprised. This is a team, Sammy, that in their last 61 home games is 57-3-1. 57-3-1.
Very impressive.
Seems like a good number. Seems
Beyond
good.
good.
Seems good to me. Also good as anytime you see number 37 out on the floor. He is the all-time leading scorer for this proud franchise that dates back to Julie V and Brian Quinn and Gene Wilrich, etc. Craig Childs is the captain of the San Diego Sockers. He and the Sockers will be on the floor at Pechanga Arena tomorrow night at 7:05 for Alumni Night and for a match against the St. Louis Ambush. And he joins us now on the 97.3 The Fan hotline. Greg? It's Craig and Sammy. Good to see you and great to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you guys for having me. Looking forward to it.
Well, let's get into the season so far for the Sockers. Only one loss this year. You're right there at the top of the Western Division where you expect to be. How do you feel the club at kind of a manufactured 1/3 of the waypoint is holding up so far?
You know, I think we've proven we're a title contender, but at the same time, I think internally we know we still have some adjustments to make in order to really lift the trophy at the end of the year. And so we're in a good position. We're a really good team. We just have to finalize that, 10% or tweak those tiny details to really go for a title run.
It's the St. Louis Ambush in town on Saturday, one of the teams toward the bottom of the Eastern Division. But then you guys have a plane flight to SeaTac up in the Pacific Northwest and a Sunday 5 o'clock game at Acesso Showwear Center against the Tacoma Stars. Third time this year that the Sockers are playing an interstate back-to-back. What kind of impact does this have on the club?
You know, it's difficult. It's physically demanding, and obviously this year I think we don't quite have the depth that we've had the last few years, and so everybody has to pick up that extra workload. But you know, the truth is, you just look at it game by game. You can look at it as 8 quarters in one day, and do your best to kind of focus on each quarter. And you know, the goal for the team is to pick up 2 wins at the end of the weekend, and then kind of refocus on what looks to be a pretty hectic following week.
If fans didn't see it, we played the video here when it happened last week, Craig, but this Sockers team doesn't just win. They entertain. A young man who you've played with for several years now, Brandon Escoto, had a bicycle kick from beyond the attacking line in your last match up in the Inland Empire against the Empire Strikers. One of the most audacious goals I've ever seen. When fans come out to the match tomorrow night, what kind of artistry and excitement can they expect?
You know, it's action-packed entertainment. It's a very technical brand of soccer, but really physical at the same time. And you know, there's some players on our team and in this league that are unbelievably talented and really have a knack to score great goals. Nick Ferreira would be one as well, 20, 30 highlight goal reels a year. And so it's entertainment and action-packed. And Brandon's bicycle a couple weeks ago, I mean, it was unbelievable, and just to have the wherewithal to consider doing that in that situation was a kudos to him for sure.
Yeah, an incredible goal. I mean, I watched the video like 10 times. We're joined by Craig Childs of the San Diego Sockers right now here on 97.3 The Fan. Craig, before you came on, we were talking about the outstanding history of this club, all the winning the Sockers have done throughout the years. And you have Alumni Night coming up on Saturday, celebrating, I'm sure, some of the great players that have come through San Diego. Craig, as somebody who's been around the organization for so long, what stands out to you about the culture of the Sockers, and what maybe even behind the scenes has contributed to what the Sockers have been able to accomplish here over the past decade plus?
Truthfully, the rich history of the San Diego Sockers is something that is always kind of present. And, all the time at home games, you'll see, Brian Quinn and Julie V, Ray Taylor, and a lot of the former stars of the past that are, season ticket holders and are there week in and week out. And so it's important to let the younger players in the organization know, how important the history is and what that kind of means to put the crest on. And so, the standard is set very high in this organization. And that was set, back in the late 80s and early 90s. And that's just something that we're trying to continue to hold up high and kind of do right by the old guard.
Soccer and community are forever interwoven. Every great soccer franchise has a community that builds it up from the grassroots. And one thing I found very interesting at the end of last year, Craig, when the San Diego Loyal had to fold as a franchise, was talking to so many fans who came to that outdoor franchise and found community through connection with players, through the opportunity to have that moment, that shared autograph or picture, players that loitered on the field, on the pitch after the match was over and created those interactions. And I've literally taken some of those families and said, please come to a Sockers match, because when you do, you'll see that level of connection, that level of community, it's even more intimate. It's even more present than you could even find at an outdoor field. How important is that to you as a guy who is a coach of kids with Cardiff Sockers, a director of coaching who has that connection to generations to come, that the Sockers make it such an emphasis to be community oriented?
Yeah, that has always been important to the Sockers, and having your families around the organization and having kids in and around the locker room and kids joining training and really looking out in the local community. It has been super important, and it's definitely a point of emphasis for the club. And so, every single game, after the game, every player is going to walk around the field and kind of shake hands and sign autographs. And it gives the fans an opportunity to kind of look face to face and have a conversation with all of us players. We're super accessible. We really enjoy it on the other side as well. It's fun to talk to the fans. There's some of the fans that feel like family at this point. I've known them for 15 years and, I see them, 15, 20 times a year, and it's at the grand old arena. And so, it's important to the franchise, and, and we're just trying to keep the history alive.
Well, Craig, we'll let you go. We're approaching the top of the hour. 2 busy games for the Sockers, both available on Twitch, but we encourage fans to go to Pechanga Arena tomorrow night for the game against St. Louis Ambush. $3 Bud Lights tomorrow night, not for nothing. So a little bit of fun there for 21 and over. Be responsible, of course, but also the alumni game, the chance to see guys like Brian Quinn, Zé Roberto pregame honor for the retired defender to celebrate his career as well. So a lot of things going on. Craig, we look forward to seeing you out there and hopefully putting a couple in the back of the net tomorrow night.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks, Craig.
That's Craig Childs. Tickets available at sdsockers.com/tickets. 7:05 Pechanga Arena tomorrow night. If you can't make it, Tony Sanchez and I will have the call for you. Twitch.tv/MASL_soccer.
Yeah, that was great. And
you've come to a game. I remember.
I have, yes. Last year I had a great time. I had the little donuts from the arena. I enjoyed those little hot donuts. That was one of the highlights of my night. Look, $3 beers. It's a good deal right there. You're going to get a lot of people interested. But I just want to go to something that Craig was talking about that I think really, hits it home. The fan interaction, like that's what always stands out, whether it's the Sockers, I'm sure with the goals, with the Wave. I mean, the level of interaction, the level of access is so good with so many of these leagues, and especially I think for kids. Yeah. Like it's such a good experience, and to get up close and personal with players. I mean, it reminds me of minor league baseball, right? Where, there was just a a level of access that you can't find everywhere. You can't find with some of the bigger teams or the Padres of the world, right? Because it's just not the way it works. So Craig, you've done a great job with the Sockers and everything they're doing. Really cool.
Well, appreciate that. If either of you guys want to hang out at the game tomorrow, the front office will get me because I always yell at them for calling it a game when it's a match. When it's a match. And then we have this thing on group text every match day where the boss goes, "What day is it?" And everyone goes, "It's game day." And then I go, "No, it's a match day because we play matches." And so every time I say game day, they get me. So you just got me on that one. But yeah, it should be a fun match. If any of you guys want to hang out, let me know.
Yeah,
I'll set you up.
I would. I'm out of town tomorrow, but I would if I were here.
We'll get you to a playoff game. We'll get you a playoff match.
There we go. Let's do
it later in the spring. Craig Childs, great to have him on. And again, cover San Diego FC. MLS is coming. We've already talked about this, by the way, like just taking you behind the curtain of the show. Once MLS season comes around, the 2024 MLS season, the season where San Diego FC does not play, but is waiting on the side of the stage, rubbing their hands together, getting their feet tapping, getting excited to play. We're going to debut a segment on this show called MLS 101 to really get more into the league. All of us as San Diegans need to learn about this league. What are the ins and outs of it? Who are the key teams? Who are the key players? How does it work? How does the designated player work? How do roster transactions work? We're going to get into that all in weeks to come as the MLS season rolls out, so that when we get to the end of the 2024 MLS season, we're ready.
Right.
We're ready to jump in 2 feet forward. San Diego FC bringing MLS to San Diego. And soccer's tomorrow night at the Changa Arena. All right, 3 hours in the books, just like that. And we've got a very fun 1 o'clock hour planned for you right here, Andy and Elsten, on San Diego's #1 sports station, The Fan. Hour number 4. Time to have some fun as we cruise back into harbor and wrap up 20 hours of Annie and Elsten here on San Diego's #1 sports talk station. It's your new midday hang. It's 97.3 The Fan. Annie is off today. She was off yesterday. We hope to see her back next week, but anyhow, been very busy planning Salute to Champions, the February 5th dinner, in which Eric Weddle, among others, will be inducted into the Hall of Champions. We talked to Eric earlier this week on the show. We look forward to chatting with all the rest of the inductees over the course of the next week or so, and we look forward to post-February 5th having Annie in studio every day. But today, it's been a lot of fun to have Sam Levitt filling in, and I think we're going to get you another time here before we send you off to spring training, Sam. And I can't say how much I've enjoyed the conversation today.
Hey, me too. It's been great. A lot of good Padres talk. By the way, this is your show, Craig, so you tell me. Padres did just announce within the last minute or two.
Oh, tell me what?
Their non-roster invites to spring training. So I don't know that there's anything super news breaking there.
What do we got?
Well,
get me excited.
Okay, well,
get me excited. I want to hear it.
I'll run through it here quickly. Okay. 2024 non-roster invites to spring training. Here we go. Right-handed pitchers. Lake Bacher, former Amarillo Sod Poodle, Texas League champion. Know Lake very well. I am rooting for Lake always. Always. Re-signed with the Padres organization. Is going to get an invite to spring training. I'm really happy for Lake. We've got Giovanni Cruz, another right-handed pitcher. Yes. Well, don't do it for everyone.
Easy,
all right. All right. These are all
that was extremely funny.
These are all right-handed pitchers. Giovanni Cruz, Kevin Kopps, who was the reliever from Arkansas. That was a fairly high draft pick.
Yeah.
Tommy Nance, Ryan Bergert, Matt Festa, Moises Lugo, Drew Thorpe, part of that Juan Soto trade, very highly touted. Drew Carlson, who we saw a little bit last year. Nick Hernandez, who we saw a little bit last year. Adam Mazer, and Nolan Watson. Left-handed pitchers. Daniel Camarena, Ryan Carpenter, Austin Krob, Javian Sandridge, and Robbie Snelling, very highly touted. Catchers, Kevin Plawecki, Ethan Salas, and Chandler Siegel, who we actually briefly saw last year as well. Infielders, Marcos Castañon, Mason McCoy, Jackson Merrill, no surprise there. Nate Mondu, Graham Pauley, no surprise there. Tyler Wade. And then outfielders, again, non-roster invites to spring training. Bryce Johnson, Jacob Marcy, Oscar Mercado, Calvin Mitchell, Tirso Ornelas, and Robert Perez Jr. Those are your 2024 non-roster invites.
It's my opinion that none of the Padres' up-and-coming minor league hitters have enough seasoning to necessarily break camp with the Padres. Not to say that it won't happen.
Sure.
It could happen. But guys like Marcy and Merrill and Pauly on this list, of course, they were going to be invited as NRIs to spring training, but I would like to see them back at minor league camp before the team breaks camp. The place where I really think not only that a player can make a team coming up from AA, but also can impact a team coming up from AA is in pitching. If you're good enough to pitch, you're good enough to pitch. And the names on there that are really interesting to me are Ryan Bergert and Adam Mazer. These are two guys who have a little bit of polish before they got into the Padres system. They've got command of multiple pitches. And while we talk about the big stuff guys at the top in terms of Snelling and Lesko, and even to a degree Thorpe, probably the most major league ready prospect in minor league baseball. He was the only minor league pitcher last year to get over 130 innings for the season. That's something we talked to Joe Sheehan about on yesterday's show. So I look at both Mazer and Berkett as guys like, hey, if they pitched well enough, the fifth spot is a possibility.
Sure. Great point. It's a great point because, there is no guarantee that fifth spot, or could be two spots that are, guys are battling for, has to be Pedro Avila or has to be Matt Waldron just because they were the guys last year. There's no reason it has to be that way. By the way, Pedro Avila and Matt Waldron could find themselves in the bullpen. We'll see what happens in spring training. But I'm with you. There would appear to be a big opportunity for those pitchers. hypothetically, for some of these outfielders, an opportunity, depending on what this roster ultimately looks like. You talked about the additional seasoning that guys like Snelling, Merrill, Paulie hypothetically need in the minor leagues. I'm with you, and I've had this opinion going back, I mean, months now as this, after the Soto trade and some of this is unfolded. No matter really, what happens here in the next few weeks as far as free agency, to me, when you're talking about, let's say, Jackson Merrill, for example, somebody who has barely played the outfield, has under 200 at bats at AA, which, by the way, is the same category that Marcy fits into. It's the same category that Paulie fits into. That's not to say these guys won't be good. They could be really, really good. If you're a Padres fan, obviously you're hoping they're really, really good. But to me, it screams of you need a little bit more time. And not that they can't contribute at some point in 24, but if you're talking about those guys being on an opening day roster, that's less than 200 at bats at AA, even for a guy as highly touted, as talented as a Jackson Merrill. So yeah, look, I think it'll be a great experience for Merrill and Snelling, Snelling, everybody you talk to and you hear about him, yeah, they're super high on him. But again, last year was his first pro season. I think he's 19. I don't even think he's 20 yet. So I have to look it up. But he's really young, and for some of these guys, I'm sort of with you, I guess is my point, in that I would love for these guys to do really well in spring, to make an impact, make their name known. But yeah, by the time we get to, the second week of March, they're in minor league camp because there are options that are going to be on the opening day roster, even if those are, gaps that are just being filled for 1 year, free agents, whatever it might be, if it's one of these outfielders that we just listed. But, I think ideal world, those guys are still a little ways away.
I know this is a somewhat old analogous reference, and it's a previous administration, which makes it even easier to bring up in some ways. But this is what the Padres have done. I mean, I've lived here since 1990. The Padres have done this so many times, rushing someone to the big leagues that we have heard about from their system, that we are intrigued about, because due to one factor or another, there wasn't another thing for us to get excited about at the big leagues. And they bring up a kid, overexpose them at an early age, and then see them fall out of favor, and then make a bad move as a result of something that you probably, with just proper seasoning, would have never made that move. I am now referring to the key acquisition in the Adrian Gonzalez trade, which was Anthony Rizzo. The Padres traded Adrian Gonzalez in 2010. They got Anthony Rizzo. He was the key to that entire deal. Everyone knew it at the time. And at the time, he was one of those guys like, hey, he's a comer, right? He's a player that's going to make it and be good. And the Padres, Josh Burns was the GM at the time, but flew him up to the big leagues in 2011. Might have been Hoyer. I'll double check on that. But I know Josh Burns was the guy who traded him that offseason for Andrew Kashner, thinking that, here comes Rizzo. He plays 49 games. He hits 141 with one homer. Crazily, I was at the game he homered. 141 with one homer. Strikes out 46 times in 128 at bats. Maybe he's really not all that he's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
You move him for Kashner, and look what happens. You lost an all-star career.
Let me ask you something, because I wasn't on the air here when this happened. When they put Fernando on the opening day roster, what was your thought back then? Because that could have been considered a rush, a guy who was coming off an injury at AA.
There's a difference, though. He's one of those special ones.
Sure.
So in every sport, right, there's that guy that you just see it and you know. And that was Tatis. Every level, once he got to the Padres system, you saw it and you knew. And then when you saw him on the field, you knew. And when you saw him on opening day for the Padres in 2019, you knew that's a different level. Could they have theoretically messed that up. I literally feel you couldn't have messed up Fernando Tatis Jr.
Yeah, with that
He's that good.
level. One thing that people are saying in the chat, and I agree, it is interesting. Out of all those names, out of the non-roster invites on the pitching side, Jairo Iriarte, who's really highly regarded, finished the year at San Antonio, 12 games, 7 starts, 38 innings total. I'm sorry, that's actually Adam Mazur. Iriarte, let me make sure I get this right, was 29 plus innings, 13 games, 7 starts. Mazur is right around the same as far as what they did at AA last year, but Mazur's in there. Iriarte is not a...
Iriarte's on the 40-man, though.
Okay.
So.
Good point. Got it.
Yeah, so he's in there just as much. He's just not an NRI because they had to put him on.
Got it.
Yeah, and protect him from Rule 5 this year.
Good question in the chat, though. Great question. Good catch. Yeah.
Could Iriarte be that guy? I mean, we were literally just talking about the NRI list, so I was said Mazur and Bergert, but absolutely. I mean, and furthermore, it's not impossible that one of these kids breaks as a reliever. I don't think the Padres want to take any of these starting pitching options and push them into a relief role anytime before like a August, September, pushing for the playoff type situation. But it's not totally inconceivable that somebody makes the roster like that.
I'll tell you what, Kevin Kopps will always interest me as a guy who is like an unbelievable reliever at Arkansas.
Yeah.
Who it seemed like when the Padres drafted him, the clear plan was we're going to try to move him really quickly because he's a reliever type that could come through the system really quickly, and had some good numbers early, but then struggled a bit in 22. Some of the numbers last year, even in San Antonio, El Paso, you kind of throw out because of the environment, but in San Antonio, the numbers weren't great. It's an interesting one. Like, I wonder if a Kevin Kopps, who has that sort of, reliever pedigree, was drafted with seemingly that in mind. If he were to show up and be really, really, really good, is that a guy who can make a bullpen? Now, this might be a very tough bullpen to crack based on the names that we assume are going to be in there already, but he would be a name to keep an eye on too. But look, like we said, there are a lot of guys on this list that if they come in and impress, especially, you said it, those pitchers, but also those outfielders, depending on what this roster looks like, you come in, you have a good spring training, you may find yourself in left field, Petco Park opening day right now. So we'll see. But hey, a little bit of Padres news there. Nothing groundbreaking.
It's something. And hey, another kid that they brought back in the fold was Luis Patino from the during the offseason as a minor leaguer who's on the 40-man roster. And of course, he was the key in the Blake Snell trade. So we sure won that deal. Yeah. Sent Patino for Snell. We got all the good years of Snell, and now we got Patino back too. So that's cool. But I mean, he's another one of those guys that's there on that. There's probably like 8 guys fighting for the 13th spot. On the Padres pitching staff, and he's in there. He's one of those spots.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Collender in the chat says Sammy needs a show. Hey, Collender, just wait till baseball season. He's going to have 2 shows, literally every day. 162 times in 180 days.
All different times a day too, if you want to tune in. So, hey, Patino's 24. Like, yeah, I'm interested to see. I mean, obviously, it hasn't panned out for him like a lot of people expected, even when he was 19, 20 years old and he was in the Padres system, and it was him and Mackenzie Gore. I mean, it was Gore considered the top pitching prospect in baseball. And quite frankly, at the time, I remember Patino was not very far behind him.
Yeah.
So you never know, and if the Padres and Ruben Niebla think they can get him back and maybe right things at 24, crazier things have happened. But look, there's no doubt Ruben Niebla is going to have to work some magic here with some of these guys and get him back on track. And he has a pretty good track record in doing that. So again, on the pitching side of things, as far as that bullpen, as far as some of the potential projects that could be on this staff, you never know how some of these guys develop and come back to the organization and do.
Sad anniversary in the world of sports. We'll talk about that when we come back. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, our Netflix and chill segment. Chappelle from Rob Has a Podcast is going to make his sports talk radio debut, and I guarantee you it won't be the last time you'll hear him on the air. Once you hear him the first time, he is a Ravens fan who's got a few words for anyone who would like to pick the Chiefs on Sunday. We'll talk to him about that. Plus, Media Melanie will join us. I will let you know in Netflix and chill. This will be a new recurring aspect of the segment, Sam. We're going to have the leader in the clubhouse. What is the best show that's finished in 2024 that I've watched? So I've got my first entry for the leader in the clubhouse. I will share that with you as we wrap up the show in the Netflix and chill segment. All still to come here before we get to 2 o'clock and Gwen and Chris. It's Annie and Elsten, Craig Elsten, Sam Levitt, Frank Marchese here with you today on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 121 on the Fan. It's Annie and Elsten. Craig Elsten here with Sammy Levitt. Today, Frank Marchese sitting in for Braden Soprenet as well. Hey, every time you open up your device, flick on your laptop, check out YouTube and click on a video, or you're in your car and you hit your preset and you pick 97.3 The Fan, you're making a choice. And we absolutely appreciate you making a choice to help join us today, to help support a new show in Annie and Elsten. We're here. We're not going anywhere. We'll be back Monday. We'll be rolling all the way through. So for everyone who thinks we're going to disappear, that's not happening. And for everyone who is an early adopter to the show, thank you. Thank you very much for finding your way to our spot and for hanging out here with us. And for me, on a personal level, today's been a lot of fun, Sammy.
Yeah, it's been great. A lot of Padre talk. I think we've kind of covered it all. Certainly considering
we've said it all. There's nothing left to say.
There's not much else to say about the roster right now. But look, I think the good news is, and trust me, I understand this time of year, and it's not just your show. I mean, I think it's every show and everybody who talks about San Diego sports. It's obviously a quiet time of year. I think the good news is that in 2 weeks, at least you'll have spring training, which, in and of itself creates some storylines, gives you a little juice, gives you some baseball, quite frankly, and some things to talk about. So, before you know it, it's going to be the grind of the season. And each and every day, Craig, as you very well know, you'll have a brand new thing to talk about. And hey, hopefully it's a competitive ball club that gives you something to talk about every day.
A new result to chew on, a new following
things
game
to criticize,
to discuss, and all sorts of strategy to chew on.
I'll tell you what, it's going to be really weird with the soul games because they're those games. I'm so interested to see what happens with those games because there are two games that count well before any other games that count. You really don't know at this point, especially on the pitching side of things, like what it's actually going to look like, because at that point, are your starters going to be able to even give you 5 innings? I don't know, maybe. And then you have the fact that you don't have actual games aside from the exhibition games for another 8-9 days after that. Those are going to be interesting, and they're against the Dodgers. And like, how are you? I'm thinking like post game wise, like how are you really going to react to them?
And it's 5 in the morning, and you're doing the post game show.
I'm looking forward to it. I suppose we're going to have 2 a.m. pre games and 3 a.m. first pitch, and then the cool thing. I'll say this. The cool thing is that I should just roll right into probably an abbreviated version of Ben and Wood. So it will be a once in a career in all likelihood type situation. But I think we're not going to really know what to make of those games, because are you really going to overreact? Probably not, but they do count, and it would be like, great. So now
let me tell you something.
You could start 0-2.
Yeah.
We just have to win a game.
Yeah, win one. I agree.
If we win a game in Korea,
right, I'm going to be over the moon,
I agree
Sammy.
with you.
I'm going to be so happy.
I agree with you. Win 1. You don't even have to win 2. Just don't make it so then really, like kind of the real opening day, you're already 0-2.
Exactly.
Yes. Win 1, you're 1-1, all things even, fine. I agree.
Just
you got to win 1.
Just give me one dub.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, if it's opening day and you beat Yamamoto, like all the better, of course, but I don't want to spend all our karma chips on that. I'm perfectly happy to win game 2 and just not to have an off season of nothing happens,
right,
followed by 2 early losses, and then we get to talk about 0-2 for a whole week.
Yeah.
Like, hey, cool, we're 0-2 for the week. Like, no.
But not even that. It's for goofs like Sam and I who have to sit up all night to watch these games. Have to, not DVR and then get back to it later. No. Just, can you make it worth it? Just one game. Just make it worth it.
I think it'll be fun. I have thought a little bit about, like, do you do any prep in the sense of, because you're going to do it for 2 straight nights of I guess getting here at midnight and basically just being up all night. Do you do any prep, like start doing that for a few nights before? Because typically I just be like, I'll just stay up, but to do that 2 nights in a row, kind of tough.
You know what?
So we'll see.
Just
I'm not sure.
Off the top of my head, Sam, I would think that you shouldn't, because you're putting your body into a kind of shock, right? By completely changing your biorhythm. And I think it's the nature of the human body that for a couple days, you can survive on that. Now, listen, it's gonna, for both of y'all, it's gonna ruin your week. Like the next 5 days after you do 2 days of I work from midnight to 8 a.m., you're gonna be messed up for like 4 or 5 days to follow. But for a couple days, I think you could do it. By contrast, unless you did it for like 2 weeks, where you got up at midnight or got up at 11 at night every night, you're going to just mess yourself up, where you're going to get to that third or fourth day and then it's game day and you're like, oh, my body is breaking down.
I'm trying to remember what I did when I had to work those 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. shifts at the network before COVID. That was a long, it's a lot longer ago than I think it was, but it's well, now, Sam, for you, biggest question would be for the morning games. Always called it Padres and pancakes.
Every time we're going to call this.
Every time I rolled my eyes when you did it, but you don't have anything
overnight
yet.
Padre. Well, I'm going to have to figure it out. There was some talk of me going to Korea a few months ago. I don't think that's happening. I'm fairly confident I'm going to be here at 2 a.m. So, you know what? I'll tell you what, I don't mind like the morning games when we have like the 7:30 a.m. pregame. I don't mind those. So I'll view this as a novelty. It's going to be cool. I think it'll be for a fan. I think it's kind of cool. Like these 2 games that do count that are on in the middle of the night. It'll be kind of cool.
It's going to be so weird because my family will be going into their school routine as I'm at the end of a baseball game, and it's just I don't even know how to handle it. We're gonna figure it all out as a community together, and then we'll be here together on 97.3 The Fan to figure it out too. Let's take a break. We're gonna get to a slightly longer last segment because I can't wait to welcome Chappelle in. We're gonna talk some football into Netflix and chill, and that's how we're gonna wrap up this week of Annie and Elsten. So stay right there. It's your new midday hang. It's Annie and Elsten on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. It's been a really fun week. If you've missed anything from all of our Annie and Elsten shows from Monday through Friday, you can find the show on any podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, what have you. Your favorite podcast platform has this show chaptered out hour by hour, full shows, guest interviews broken out as well. So check us out not only on the Odyssey app, AUDACY, on YouTube, the 97.3 The Fan show page where all our past shows are archived, but you can find the show as a podcast as well, wherever, however you're listening or watching. We say thanks for getting to the end of the week of Annie and Elsten. And Sam, we got a fun segment now. Very much looking forward to this. It's time for our weekly Netflix and Chill segment. This is what formerly was called Crossing Streams, my Crossing Streams podcast, as well as every Friday being on Ben and Woods, offering streaming recommendations. Now, we're kind of going to a jumbo-sized segment today that's going to start sports and morph in the other direction, in the TV direction, because it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to the show a young man who has absolutely made a name for himself as one of the best and the funniest hosts on the Rob Has a Podcast network. He covers reality TV like you wouldn't believe. And he's also, not for nothing, a huge Baltimore Ravens fan with maybe a thing or two to say about the AFC Championship. I welcome the great Chappelle to Annie and Elsten and to, I think, Sports Talk Radio for the first time. Chappelle, how are you doing, buddy?
Yes, thank you so much, Craig, for having me. Yes, this is my first time on Sports Talk Radio. I have a lot to say about this particular weekend in sports. But you're right. I'm a reality TV podcaster. I talk about some streaming, and I'm here to talk to you today. So thank you for having me.
You can follow Chappelle on Twitter at Chappelle's_show. That is CHAPPELLS_show. If you want to get exposed, you can go follow Rob Has a Podcast to see all of his podcasting stuff. But what triggered this, not only did I just want to get you on the show and get you on Netflix and Chill early, so we know that we'll bring you back often, Chappelle, but I saw you talking about the Ravens on Twitter, and I was just like,
what? You saw me talking about the Ravens? Me?
This is content I need on my radio show. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are America's darlings coming in to take on Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Speaking of that, I saw a tweet earlier it was like a graphic of the United States and where the fan bases lie and like who's rooting for what team. And I thought the Chiefs were America's darlings, but there's a lot of Lions support out here as well. And I saw in this little tiny corner of the map, right in the DMV area, is just still the Baltimore Ravens fan base. And so I'm like, well, for me, it's always the Ravens versus everybody, and it looks like it's no different this weekend and this season. So I thought we were all rooting for the Ravens. Maybe that's because my timeline is carefully curated where I only see positive things about my team. But yeah, I guess we are the underdogs. Who knew?
Well, not according to Las Vegas, but according to the major television pundits, it's Patrick Mahomes' world, and everyone's living in it. Has Lamar Jackson's season been slightly overlooked?
Of course, but that's always the case. I think that Lamar has just a history of being overlooked as a prospect to be a quarterback, to be a rising star, and to be a superstar, despite being an MVP award-winning quarterback, like a unanimous MVP. This man has done so much in his young age that you would think people are still not questioning his ability. But there's not a day where I don't get on Twitter or on social media or even listen to a television show or a YouTube channel where someone's saying, I don't know if he can throw, or I think he's overrated. I'm thinking, what else does he have to do? And so this season, and especially these playoffs, are just another chance for Lamar to prove the naysayers wrong and to really just shine. And so I'm so happy that he's got that monkey off his back. He's won his playoff game, and now he's in the championship game. And this could be the moment that really ascends him into greatness as a potential Hall of Fame quarterback. It's crazy that people are questioning what would be the first, two-time MVP before the age of 28? Crazy talk. If he wins Super Bowl this year, instant Hall of Famer. You can't tell me different.
Now, look, Chappelle, I think Ravens fans should be very confident with Lamar, with their defense, with the Kansas City offense that has not been great on the whole this year. But I want you to answer me this, because it would seem to me there's there's potentially another factor at play in this Ravens-Chiefs matchup, and that's got to be the Taylor Swift factor. I mean, does the NFL want Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce going to the Super Bowl? Is that part of the scripted plan? Your thoughts on behalf of Ravens Nation?
You know, I'm not normally anti-Taylor Swift because I'm not crazy. The fan base that she has, they're crazier than I am about the Ravens. They're nuts. And so she's bringing a lot of attention to the Chiefs as if they needed more attention. And I think that slowly the NFL audience is like, well, maybe it'd be great if Taylor Swift wasn't the face of the Super Bowl this year. And so I think that people are starting to root for us as the people who could potentially save us from Swiftie Nation as the Chiefs move into what could be another Super Bowl performance. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot of pressure on the Ravens to be able to shut that down, to kind of get this whole narrative that the NFL is really looking to sell tickets and to get views and to hoist these megastars like Taylor Swift to the front and center of what we consider one of the best American sports, and taking a lot of shine away from these athletes. So I think it is on the Ravens. We are the last hope to keep the Super Bowl from being a Swiftie Bowl,
Right. That's what I find is so interesting about this matchup. And at least for me, like I'm looking at TikTok comments, and I've seen this a lot on TikTok in particular for whatever reason, where Lamar Jackson is not just playing for the city of Baltimore, not just trying to lead the Ravens to the Super Bowl, but there's like this narrative that we all need to rely on Lamar to take down the Taylor Swift narrative and not let it happen, not let the Swifties get to the Super Bowl. So
the Swiftie Bowl.
I'll tell you what, there's a lot on Lamar Jackson's shoulders this week, really is.
Yeah, look, if we win, there will be a party in the USA. But if we lose, who's to say, right? Like this. It's just one of those things where it's like, everybody should be getting behind Lamar because Lamar is amazing. He's a great quarterback or whatever, and because he has a great story. But people are trying to figure out if this is scripted, right? Like, if did the NFL put their thumb on the scale a little bit? Or they say, okay, well, we love Travis Kelce, we love Patrick Mahomes. It'd be great to see him as the face of this franchise forever, but we also have Taylor Swift now. Like, there's just so much of the narrative that would say, oh, this would be great for the NFL. I think a lot of hardcore football fans just don't feel that way. And so, I think that for us, we really have to lean into everybody trusting in Lamar to take down this dynasty. And I've always trusted in Lamar to do that. Before Swift, I think, if nothing else, this is a net positive for Baltimore fans because now people are gathering around us in a way that they've never galvanized behind this team and say, okay, listen, anybody but them, anybody but the Chiefs. And if we're the ones to stop them, then so be it. So, yeah, Chief Swizzle has her own thing going on, but we're going to try to keep her as far away from the Super Bowl as possible.
All right, we're looking to banish Taylor Swift here. Talking to Chappelle from Rob Has a Podcast here. It's our Netflix and Chill segment now. Brief transition. Last time I think we were on the podcast together, Chappelle was talking about season 1 of Traitors on Peacock. The best, as far as I'm concerned, new reality television show, reality competition show that exists. Season 2 of The Traitors is now underway. New episode last night. Of course, we won't spoil for anyone who hasn't watched the banishments and the murders and whatnot. But what makes, in your opinion, The Traitors as great as it is?
Okay, so for the people who are not into The Traitors, don't like reality TV competition shows, this show in particular is like any game that you could play at home with your friends, kind of like the game Mafia. There are other versions of this game where you have a group of people and several people are chosen to be, the killers or the traitors. And everybody has to figure out who they are just based off of people's reactions to things, just your capacity for deception and for lying and picking up on cues. And it sounds like a pretty straightforward game, but I think the thing that really makes this season is the cast. It is a star-studded cast of people from other reality TV shows, whether they're competition shows, whether they're a Real Housewife of something, Shahs of Sunset. There's a lot of different people in the show and big personalities that really make this show what it is. And so, yeah, there's some good gameplay here. There's a lot of strategy, but really watching these people fight that's pretty much what we come here for. These are big personalities who are used to being the center of attention, and they're used to being the smartest person, the most strategic person in the room, at the very least, the loudest person in the room. And so seeing them all at combat week to week and trying to watch the traders navigate as they kill off each of their friends and coworkers and, colleagues and even just random strangers that they don't know. It's a great watch. So if you haven't watched season 1, I definitely recommend you watch season 2. You don't even have to watch season 1 to watch season 2. You can jump right in. It's been a great time. I'm glad you've been enjoying it.
Yeah, that's the number one reason to be staying on Peacock right now is
Yes.
to be there for the traders. And then once you get into it, then they've got the traders UK, they've got the traders Australia. You have the opportunity to get various flavors of the traders. And again, just very briefly for those who haven't watched the show, it is akin, as Chappelle said, to the Social Game Mafia. They started with a group of 21 people. 3 people were not randomly, they were selected by the host in a secret selection to be traders. And then the goal is for the remaining 18 to find those 3. And each night they have a banishment ceremony where where everyone gets to vote to try and eliminate someone they think is a traitor. And then once that's happened, at night, the traders get together and they get to eliminate a faithful, which is called a murder, according to Alan Cumming.
Yes. And the murders happen at night, and they come back the next day, and then they do it all over again, where they have to look and say, okay, well, if this person was murdered, who could have done it? Why could they have done it? And is there any real clue to who the traitors are? The show almost gives no help to these people to help find out who the traitors are. And they're just going off of their intuition, their reads of each other. And it's very fun to watch people be so loud and so wrong all the time. And I think that's the most compelling thing about the show, is that you can think that you know somebody is the bad guy. You can think you know them so well. Their reaction was so big. The way they're looking at you is different. The way they're talking to you is different. And just be completely wrong as hell. And we see it every week. And it's such a blast to watch. I definitely recommend it for anybody who hasn't.
Oh, that is so great. All right, now we are fully transitioned into the Netflix and chill portion of the show, guys. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to start things off, and I mentioned this during the break, Chappelle, but as you know, we always ranked at the end of the year at Crossing Streams our top 20 shows. I would come on Ben and Woods, give the top 5 shows at midseason, top 5 shows at the end of the year. So seeing as this is now kind of an everyday thing here on 97.3 The Fan, and we're going to have the every Friday segment, I'm introducing today what I'm calling Leader in the Clubhouse, which is the first show that is finished in 2024. It has to have the last episode air this calendar year that I think is the best show so far of 2024. So obviously, right, the traders wouldn't be up for this yet because it's not complete. So, and I'm going to lean towards scripted over reality for this ranking nonetheless. Fargo, season 5, FX on Hulu, is your first Leader in the Clubhouse for 2024. Fargo has been a great show throughout its history. I think the first couple of seasons of Noah Hawley's adaptation of the incredible Coen Brothers movie may be my favorite movie of all time. Fargo, each one has been exemplary, has had great writing, acting, the directing is incredible, cinematography, etc. But I thought season 5 was almost perfect in total. 10 episodes, and it had such a satisfying conclusion to this season. This season features Minnesota in 2019, and the season stars Juno Temple from, of course, Ted Lasso, as Dorothy, who in the very first episode runs afoul of the police through something inadvertent and winds up being on the radar of her ex-husband, who she has been hiding from for years, played by the great John Hamm from Mad Men. And he plays this swaggering North Dakota sheriff who is all John Wayne and MAGA and like just militant. I am the authority. He's this bigger than life character who is the terrifying antithesis to Dorothy's character, played by Juno Temple, who winds up being so much stronger than you can imagine her to be. The show is fun. It's funny. It's very, very sweet, in addition to being scary at times. And I thought it finished perfectly. Chappelle, it's my number one so far. I mean, look, it's January, but it's the leader in the clubhouse.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. I don't watch Fargo, but I've been seeing the reception from this season, and it's made me want to watch the show so badly. If I didn't have so many other shows on my list, I would stop what I'm doing and watch it right now because I've just been seeing so many great things about it. Whenever I heard Fargo in the beginning, I always go back to that movie. I'm thinking, what? We made a show about a movie from a long time ago? Like, I think I was a kid when the movie came out. And now I'm a grown-ass man, and y'all are telling me we're 5 seasons into telling this story, and it seemingly has gotten better and better. So I'm not shocked that this is your first leader in the clubhouse. I think it's a great pick.
Do you have a recommendation for the audience? I'm putting you on the spot. You can say no, but do you have a recommendation for the audience?
Well, as far as, my thing is kind of reality mostly. But as far as reality TV goes, on Netflix, on my podcast, Nothing But Netflix, that I host with Rob Sesternino on Rob Has a Podcast, we talk about different Netflix shows every week. Sometimes we cross streams and go into different realms, but we try to leave that to Craig. And so for this week, we talked about a show called The Trust. I think it's the Trust, A Game of Greed is what the show is called. And this is very similar to The Traitors in that they have the opportunity to eliminate people so that they are not able to get the money. But the whole premise of the show is that they're given like $250,000 amongst 11 people. And they say, we can divide this 11 ways. You never have to vote anybody out as long as you trust everybody. You can, every week of the show, abstain from voting. You don't have to vote it out. You can just split it the 11 ways as long as you make it through the show without voting. But somebody might give into temptation, and all it takes is one vote to send somebody home. So every week you see a group of people trying to determine, do I want to split this 11 ways, or do I want to increase my winnings by getting rid of one person? And there's not a lot of challenges. It's not very physical. It's really coming down to, do you trust this person or not? Do you think you have votes coming your way? Do you think you're trustworthy to the other people? And Rob and I broke it down into 3 different podcasts. There were 3 drops on Netflix where the spoiler alert, the cast was not able to just split the money 11 ways. They did vote people out. And
Shocker.
So we talked about, shocker, right? Yeah, no matter how trustworthy, that money was calling people's names. And so, we see them vote out certain people, and we talked about it throughout the season. And then we followed up our podcast coverage with an interview from one of the castmates. Her name is Jay, and she was a standout character on this season as well. So if you are looking for something that's a little bit devious to watch, watching people go after each other for money, greedy, the tales of what happens when you let greed get to your head and take over your life. Yeah, that sounds like fun, right? So check it out. Check out The Trust on Netflix, and then check out our interview with one of the standouts at the end of the season.
Outstanding stuff. And you can listen to Chappelle, Nothing But Netflix, with Rob Sesternino each week on Rob Has a Podcast. Real quick, and I didn't give her enough time, but Media Melanie joins us in this segment as well. I've only given you like 70 seconds here, Media Melanie, but I want to give you your chance to give your recommendation for the week as well.
All right, perfect. Thanks for having me, guys. I've got my TV show Elevator Pitch, and I was a little torn between shows, but I went with Boy Swallows Universe on Netflix. It's a dark comedy drama, a little bit of mystery. It's actually based on a book. It's a coming-of-age story. It's about a boy in 1980s Australia, and his family's involved with drug dealing and bad guys. If I had to liken it to something, I'd say it's like a dark Wonder Years crossed with Sons of Anarchy, but set in Australia.
Okay.
I'm halfway through. Love it so far. There's 7 episodes, limited series, minimal time investment. And it's great. The little kid who's the lead actor is really awesome. So that is my pick of the week.
All right. Nice job, Melanie.
Outstanding. Boy Swallows Universe, and that is where?
That is on Netflix.
On Netflix. All right. Maybe that's on next week's Nothing But Netflix as well. Melanie, thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week. Chappelle, man, great first time out here on Annie and Elsten. We'll talk to you again soon, okay?
All right. Thanks, Craig. Talk to you later.
There he goes.
All right.
What did you think, huh?
I don't know about all those shows, but I can tell you Below Deck is hot. Love it. Watch Below Deck. I'll be on season 32.
You promise? For Sammy Levin and Frank Marchese, I'm Craig Elsten. Thanks for listening to Annie and Elsten. We'll be back with you Monday on The Fan. Have a great weekend, everybody.